right, I'm here with JT Telford. We just say your last name right?
Well, you say JT follows JC, or you can call me Joe.
Yeah, we just met and through a mutual friend.
Yeah, man.
He's like, this guy's really interesting. I looked up your stuff. I'm like, oh, he seems interesting. So did zero prep. Well, no idea where this interview is going to go, but it looks like you're into all sorts of unusual subject matters.
Yeah, I'm kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none. So I know a little bit about a lot. So this podcast can go in any direction you
go
go
any direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a ton of different ways. Like your friend sent me his notes trying to see which way to go, but he was saying, well, I think he's going to come on tomorrow. I don't know, probably not going to air it in that order, obviously, but he's going to hop on with us too. Mm-hmm. But I'm interested in some of the ancient history stuff. You've done a lot of...
Yeah. So before I ever got kind of like conspiratorial, like I was just living kind of the normie life, I was watching that show, Ancient Aliens. And I thought it was kind of dumb, but kind of interesting, just the mysteries of the megaliths. And so this is before I kind of really started to research that. And I was just like, the questions surrounding the pyramids that on basically every continent and the megalithic structures that are the oldest things in the whole world. I mean, so like kind of from a Christian standpoint, I don't believe in millions and billions of years. I don't believe that man were cavemen at one point. I think that man were smart from...
You don't think you came from a fish?
No, I do not. I mean, I think that that's the thing. I mean, of course, if you believe biblically, the first man walked with God. They lived 900 years. I believe they knew a lot.
It's interesting seeing how not just in the Bible, other things talk about men living those long amounts of years.
Right, yeah.
That I find very interesting.
Yeah, so if you think about it like that, biblically, and if you go into the Apocrypha, that, you know, godly men had a connection, direct connection with God, the creator of everything. And then if you read like texts like the book of Enoch, the watchers, the angels came down and they took wives of the daughters of men, and, you know, they created these race of giants. But what they also did was they imparted knowledge to man. They taught them all kinds of things like metalworking, sorcery, astronomy. So I think that's really interesting to think that, like, so these earliest men and the oldest structures seem super advanced. And that makes more sense than the idea that man were hunter-gatherers. And then one day they just said, hey, let's build the craziest thing we ever seen today. Like, I want to say the Great Pyramid was the tallest structure in the whole world, I believe, until like the 1700s.
There wasn't lots of things built around there similar first. Well, I went to Peru maybe 2 years ago. I haven't been to the Great Pyramids, but I was just blown away by some of the architecture I've seen. That's when I'm like, the official story is the Incas built it, but it's these giant rock walls, these huge rocks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There's no mortar used. They're just they're set together, just placed together. They're earthquake proof. They're like perfectly fit. It's unreal. I've never seen anything like it. And on top of it, there's these shitty rock work that the Incas were building. And they just say, oh, the Incas built both. It's like, I don't think, you know, the Spanish asked them how they could do it. They couldn't do it. So right. It's like, it doesn't add up, but our history books say, oh, it's the Incas that built this. There's just no way.
Well, right. So that's the interesting part. So like if you watch like Ancient Aliens, they would say, oh, well, these primitive people were talking about gods coming down from the heavens, but they didn't really know what an alien was. So scientifically, we'll explain these things must have been from other planets. And when they talked about giants, they were talking about people were giant in intellect and things like that. But
there's always things talking about giants.
But when you actually are more faithful to what they said, the stories they said, that does line up with a lot of the ancient mythology, Greek mythology. It lines up with, you know, the Book of Enoch, where the gods came down not from Uranus. They came down from the heavens. Mm-hmm. They weren't from Mars or Nibiru. They came down from the heavens. So that story is a story that's told all around the world over ages with gods from the heavens, giants, and a flood.
No, I think it's so important what you're saying. I just covered this over the last few years. The same stories are told all around the world, all different cultures, all very similar stories. That can't be coincidence.
No, absolutely not.
Unless it's in our DNA. I guess it could be, but it doesn't seem likely to me.
Well, and so sometimes, especially like the Bible is accused of copying other texts. But I just think it's all one story.
Yeah.
So you can think even like biblically, you have the Tower of Babel where these peoples came together, but then God separated them, spread them out the languages. So now you have a story that sounds the same, could be slightly different from a different perspective, but it is the same story.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that if there was a worldwide judgment, that everyone would know about it.
Yeah, the whole world would be.
And you think about it
There's a
biblically
flood
too. You have
typically, right?
you have 8 people on the ark, the sons of Noah. They go out, and obviously, eventually, they are fruitful and multiply. So this story will never be forgotten.
No. And I think there's actually, looks like some like, I haven't gone deep in this, but it looks like there was a flood by like fossil evidence and whatnot.
Well, yeah.
I'm not sure how strong that evidence is, but I've seen some things showing.
Well, on the tallest of mountains, there's fossils of sea life.
I've seen that, yeah.
So how do you explain that without something to explain all the water everywhere?
And I have no idea if it's connected, but also when I was in Turkey, underground cities, big underground cities built. It's like, what was this for? Were they bad? Were there some rough times? Was it something bad happened? Obviously, that probably wouldn't necessarily have been a flood. But why are they building underground cities?
Well, that gets into like a whole different rabbit hole. But the idea of underground tunnels and even the mythologies of underground cities, like you have like Agartha and Shambhala. And again, that's kind of another similar mythologies that come down.
Obviously, but that shows something bad was probably happening to create these underground cities.
There is underground tunnels and underground cities all around America, but I think that just kind of more speaks to like a general, there's a lot of mystery. And then kind of like the thing that drives me nuts about kind of academia is they act like they know everything. But again, when you start to look into these mysteries, like the pyramids, as you said, you went to visit some in Peru. Seeing the pictures does not do it justice until you go there. Because I mean, it's a lot of the things you go see. It's like you can't really ever replace going there, boots on the ground, like putting your hands on it, and you're like, there's no way.
The magic you could feel. I read a Graham Hancock book. Do you know who that is?
Oh yeah. I
booked to take it down and just flew to Peru, reading all this stuff. I don't think I should check this out, and I was just like, so glad I did. It was magical. And then they're trying to get me to do ayahuasca there, but I ended up compromising and doing some DMT on those walls. And it's intense.
Well, that's interesting when you get into that, because I know that Graham Hancock often talks about those hallucinogens that connects with the ancestors. But I mean, believe it or not, that actually ties in with the Book of Enoch, because I think it's really fascinating. If these ancient peoples talked about gods from the heavens, they talked about giants. So biblically, or in extra biblical texts, the Book of Enoch speaks of the giants were, they were the half-breed between angel and man. And it was not something that God intended. So it wasn't supposed to happen. No, it was not something that God ever wanted them to do.
Man, can't control ourselves.
So, but it's interesting that these ancient peoples are speaking about giants being responsible for these megaliths. So I remember Graham Hancock saying that when people take DMT, they encounter the same beings, and they see geometric patterns and things like that. So, ayahuasca is called the vine of the dead.
Yeah.
So you're connecting through a shaman to connect to these ancient spirits. Well, now, I believe biblically, if you find a spirit, it's not the spirit of your grandma. It's not somebody who's related to you. It's a unclean spirit. And that's what happened to the giants. When they died, there was really no place for them.
Yeah.
So they were destined to roam the world as unclean spirits. And that's where we get demons from. Like that's the origin. So I think it's really interesting to think that if you are tapping into that realm and you're encountering the ancestors, you literally could be encountering
demons or angels.
The actual entities that did create those megaliths. So I think that's the thing. There is knowledge in some of that stuff. But obviously, when you open those doors, you open yourself up to demonic attacks. You got to be very careful playing around with that. And they call it, the guy who did the work on early called it like machine elves. But I did that and it's like, this is demons and angels you're fucking with. But sometimes it's hard to know which is which. Well, right. I mean, that's the thing.
A joke, but it did often open me up to like God and some of that stuff too.
Oh, yeah.
So it did be okay. Clearly, God is out here. This is real, but this isn't a game.
Well, it's interesting. I think in ayahuasca, people talk about encountering like spirit-like entity or a serpent-like entities. And so, again, biblically, and even just all through the mythologies, serpents are seen as wise, right? And so the serpent in the garden gave man knowledge, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So it's kind of like, depending on your point of view, these entities could give you things. They could give you knowledge. Now, obviously, it comes at a price. And I think that's that's the dangerous part about it. It's like when the Bible tells you not to divine, not to mess around with witchcraft, it's not because it doesn't work. It's because it does work. Because it does work. Yeah, because if there was no danger in it, then it would just be like,
matter if you mess with it.
Yeah, who cares? But the fact that it does, And I do think it's interesting to that whole idea of DMT and even just the psychedelics. Now you see all these CEOs of these major corporations, Fortune 500 companies.
They're designing the AI and stuff. It's a little bit scary. Maybe they're getting fed the knowledge to.
Well, right. It's like it's kind of like that. I believe that, kind of the astral plane, or just like that kind of almost in the way Stranger Things shows the upside down. Mm-hmm. Like there's ways to kind of pierce that spiritual veil. And I think one of them is obviously you go straight to witchcraft, but I do think that like pharmakia, I think that the drugs is a gateway to that.
It shoots you right there, but people don't understand that you got to be very careful. I've seen people get fucked up and not the same after, and I've seen it help other people. And maybe it's better too. Like for ayahuasca, particularly, I didn't do that. They're trying to get me to do it. Some jitsu people, but it's like I'm not like battling anything right now. I think you go do ayahuasca when you're like battling some decision, struggling on life. If I'm happy in my life, why would I take this drug that might turn me upside down?
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember Aaron Rodgers?
I think he
went down there, and of course his encounter. It was like he seemed so black-pilled when he came back, and then he was talking about seeing an entity called the Hat Man afterwards.
People see the same entities. That's the crazy part. There's the Joker,
right?
Well,
that's the interesting thing. One of my buddies, you should actually probably talk to him at some point. His name's Paul Stobbs, and he did this book called the Nephilim Look Like Clowns.
Nephilim. There's a clown one, I think, too, in DMT. I've never.
Right. So like jesters and clowns, and I want to say in the Hindu religion and some of the stuff in the Far East, the demonic entities they show like literally have like clown type outfits. They have like psychedelic outfits.
Yeah, because those colors pop out in DMT.
Right. So I don't think it's a coincidence that people see jesters and things like that. Just kind of like they call them like trickster spirits. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, the fact that people see the same, you're not hallucinating the same thing. So
people
it's
can
like
see what they say it feels like God and angels and stuff too. So I think people don't understand the dark side. You can see something really, really, really scary and dark.
Well, the devil can appear as an angel of light. So it's kind of like
that's
just because they look good doesn't mean they're not. That means they are good. Because I think that's some of the things I know that when people have messed around with that kind of stuff, they talk at first these entities being good and nice, but it's kind of like that. I think that's the Faustian bargain where it's like
can look beautiful.
Well, if you want a thing, well then they can give you that, but it's kind of like at what price? So it's like when they start to act malevolent, then you're like, oh wow, I didn't realize this is what I was dealing with. And I think that's kind of like, that's the dangerous part about it.
No, I probably wouldn't do it again, to be honest. It's just one of those things you realize like how serious it was. It didn't feel like I was hallucinating to me. It didn't feel like it was some fake hallucination. Like I've done LSD and shrooms. It felt like the shit was as real as it is right here.
Right. And that's what everyone says. So, I mean, yeah, I think obviously there's a danger to it. And I think that I guess like it's hard to really explain what it is, but it really is interesting that you have to work with a medicine man. You have to work with like a witch doctor to proceed into this.
And how do you know if you can trust this medicine man? The guys down there, they say there's a lot of bad medicine men. They're saying that's a huge problem.
Right, exactly.
Like if you do it, make sure to come with us so we can get you a trusted shaman.
Absolutely,
They're taking advantage of the tourism for it, and taking advantage of women. Who knows all kinds of fucked up stuff, putting things in their head.
Well, right, but if you think about it too, like so. A lot of these places, and they're associated with these places that are associated with spirits. And I think that is the more dangerous part when you think about, like, to go back to the megaliths, like, just think about the stuff that the Aztecs were doing. Like, what it says in the book of Enoch, that the giants were, like, cannibalistic, and they were just the nastiest creatures you could imagine. Well, those spirits that's why demons are so dangerous and so malevolent. And so you think like what they require is a lot of times for giving you things is blood.
And they wanted lots of it. The Aztecs, they were doing sometimes like tens of thousands in a day, cutting the hearts out of people.
Right. So that's kind of the bargain that they made.
And they're warriors. And it was just so out of control, the sacrifices there.
Right. So, I mean, I think that's why I just think it kind of all fits together is because that people are experimenting with this pharmakia, ayahuasca and DMT, and then they're usually surrounded by these areas that are spiritually significant with megaliths. And it's like they literally could be contacting the same beings that created them.
Thanks for watching Fight Back Podcast. If you like the show, like, subscribe, or share the video. There's also donation links in the descriptions. I thought too that people are probably, and all these different continents, are probably communicating with the same beings. They're always, these human sacrifices are always demanding, usually like kids, young women, virgins, warriors. There's just too many similarities.
Right. Did you ever
a
see,
serpent god often?
Did you ever see that movie? Was it called the Cabin in the Woods?
I don't think so.
It's actually a pretty interesting movie, but it's like it's kind of a little satire, but it's about kind of like one of these slasher teen movies. But it's got this twist. It's like the governments of the world are setting these things up, and it's all about, because in all these all these horror movies, you have like the virgin, you have like the jock, you have like the nerd, and you have like the jester. And so during this whole thing, I think there was a scholar too. But when these characters would be killed, they had like this ritual where the blood was coming down in these kind of vats, and it was all about satisfying the blood of this bloodlust of this titan who lived in the earth. It was like the peoples made a bargain with these titans in the earth, and if they were satisfied with the blood, they would not come back and destroy humanity. And I just thought, of course, and they're making jokes. I mean, it's kind of a funny movie because they kind of make jokes about it. Well, back in the day, we just thrown a virgin in a volcano. But
that's what they did, though. They actually did do that. Yeah.
Right. But I think it's one of the things, and I think that's why I kind of like enjoy watching movies, is because they do kind of tell you, it's like they kind of reveal kind of hidden truths through satire. It's kind of like, I think that's why we always you see the way celebrities carry on and show the kind of gang signs, and
all those weird signs, the Illuminati. I don't follow that close, but everyone's like, "Oh, there's a sign they always do," and covering the eyes.
Well, yeah, you just see, it's kind of like it's like hidden in plain sight. Like when you see it, you see it everywhere.
Yeah.
But they kind of always do that in the movies when like they reveal like certain numbers, like 33, 322.
The number thing, I noticed they're really into this numerology stuff, and they seem to believe it. Or these powerful people seem to believe it.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think in the occult, in the esoteric community, I mean, obviously that they do believe in it. It's kind of like, what does it mean? I think sometimes, like when you have online conspiracy theorists, they know just enough to be dangerous.
So, it can be hard knowing what's true. So me, I don't know a lot about the subjects you're talking today, and I'm trying to learn these subjects. They're subjects I'm curious on, but it's like it's very hard finding the truth. This, which you're in the same where you're trying to find the truth of all this stuff, and it's complex. What's real, what's pushed, what's...
Well, the truth of the matter is a lot of this numerology and this esoteric knowledge comes from secret societies. So you can research them, but I mean, like, how do we really know?
Yeah,
unless you're really in the club, like, how do you really know what it all means? I mean, we know that it means something to them, and it usually is a sign. But like when you see movies and they reveal truth through some kind of a satire, I guess that's the thing. I grew up watching all the movies. Back in the day, especially the movies used to be good back in the day.
I don't watch many movies anymore, but
they're terrible.
Movies are terrible now.
They're terrible, but like when I started to research some of this stuff, I started to think back, and I was like, they were saying that in this one movie, and I thought it was a joke then, but now you see either something comes to fruition or it's just like it's a reveal of something that is true. They put it out there in a joke, and some people say, is that predictive programming? Is this like karmic retribution? Is this some kind of way just the revelation of the method? They do reveal what they're doing. And that's kind of interesting in that Cabin in the Woods. They kind of make a point to say that these people did know. They had chances to turn back, but they decided to do this. So therefore, we're not actually killing them. They
gave them a warning.
They went along with it willingly. But when you watch that movie, and it's of course like they're in some kind of a dome, and all this is taking place, and you're like, I don't know, it just seems like, would the elites play these kind of games? Like, you see like the Squid Games, and everyone's all into that. It's like,
it does almost feel like they want to toy with us, and
it does seem
maybe
like
there's a reason besides just wanting to toy with us, or maybe they're just bored and they want to toy with us, and they have all the money, all the power.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that's the interesting part about like how do these messages get into these movies? I mean, I think that like when you hear how rock stars and stuff write songs sometimes, and they reveal how they like.
It just came to them.
Yeah, it just came to me. I don't know how it came to me. Like I just picked up a pen and I wasn't even holding on to it. It was just
good amount of guys have said they sold their soul to the devil too.
Absolutely.
Bob Dylan, Eminem, those two pop to mind. It's interesting. They'll say in an interview, and sure, maybe they're joking, but
that's what. Yeah, right. So exactly, hidden in plain sight. It's like when you actually listen to him and you believe him, you're like, they weren't. It didn't sound like he was kidding.
No, you watch him say it. It doesn't sound like he's kidding. And Bob Dylan saying it.
Pretty matter of fact. So if like writers in all kinds of different fields, like there's a famous comic book writer, Alan Moore. He wrote the movie, for the movie V for Vendetta.
Oh yeah,
he wrote that, and he kind of revealed like how he was basically possessed by a demon for like a month, and it was like the worst month of his life. But
He just
then he
came.
kind of gave into it, and then it's kind of almost like the movie Venom. Like
You have these things
he
take
gained
you over where you're
symbiosis.
not really, yes.
He gained symbiosis, and then through that, there's power, and that's basically what witchcraft is like
Decent
being
amount of artists and stuff say that type of things, and Arthur or something just comes over him and comes out.
right. So if you think about it, like if this famous writer, and obviously you hear about like these musicians talking about that, is that how this gets into the culture? Like, you know what I mean? Kind of like the whole Charlie Kirk thing, and then you have like that movie Snake Eyes with all the.
I didn't really follow that, but I saw something about that it was basically identical to.
It was so close on the nose of like this guy getting shot at this event, and it's like in September.
Was his name Charlie Kirk or what was it?
I think his name was Charles Kirkland.
It was like, yeah, 'cause I saw something.
It was Charles Kirk. His name was Charles Kirkland.
So much going on, you can't keep track of everything.
If you looked at the movie poster, it actually showed, or the fight poster, it almost looked like September 10th. I think it might have been a 19, but the point is, he got shot in September. His name was Charles Kirkland. Got shot in the neck.
Jesus.
And then there was a fighter during this fight, and his name was Tyler the Executioner.
Tyler was.
Tyler wrote.
Wow.
And you're like, okay, so this movie came out, I want to say 1993 or 1996, something like that. And you're like,
so bizarre.
How is that possible? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just too weird. I mean, is that like a demonic prophecy, like that was put in there? Because it doesn't seem human to be able to call
answer to that question,
to call a shot like that, but yet it's there. And the same thing like with
Baron Trump. There's one.
Oh yeah, the Adventures of Baron Trump.
Yeah, it's like, how do you know that? I don't know the details behind that one, but someone explained that to me one time. Like, that's weird.
There was another one. I think it was. I might have been Werner von Braun. You know, the guy from NASA who was like a Operation Paperclip Nazi, and he wrote a book, and it was all about going to Mars. And the first man on Mars was named Elon.
Right, someone said that too. Like all these things, there's probably tons of them we're missing too. These weird little. And
really
is
weird.
It just coincidences? Not people. It's possible, but that's especially the Charlie Kirk. That's a lot right there. I don't know the details of the Baron one. I know that one has a ton that are strikingly similar to like Baron Trump.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing. Is like, when somebody acts like they know exactly how it works, I don't think anybody does, and I think that
I agree.
That's why when you kind of
like I know this, I don't really trust that person that much usually.
No, when you kind of do a lot of research into conspiracies, and I think through like a biblical worldview, I don't really believe in a lot of coincidences. I mean, there's sometimes, I guess,
but when there's too many, it's just.
Well, if you believe like in a sovereign God, he allows the devil to do certain things.
Yeah.
It seems like there's people who are seeking to do what's right, and then there's people who don't.
Yeah.
So the idea that everything is random, I don't think everything is random. So, I mean, can you explain it all? Can you explain all the connections? No, but I mean, it makes more sense that you have people trying to work in the will of God, and then there's people who are trying to work in the will of the devil. So there is some kind of coordination. And I think that when you see random events and tragedies, you're like, I'm not saying there's no accidents, but I do believe that when you have this many coincidences, it's kind of like another thing was like 9/11.
Yeah.
When, if you ever looked into all the predictive programming around 9/11.
Yeah, I was actually thinking, I was mentioning earlier how it was, they kept mentioning it. I think there was some
everywhere
shows with planes hitting it. It was like, obviously.
Yeah, Neo's passport in the Matrix, his passport expires on September 11th.
Oh, I didn't know that.
2001. Yeah, and all that kind of. I mean, that's just one example. I mean, I want to say that I've seen a video about that, and it was like 2 hours long. Like I thought, I knew all of them, but I was just like,
so many.
And at some point, you're almost like
Nick lived in units 9 and 11.
You're almost like, the more you see it, you're like, there's no way like that could all be true. But then
when you look
it almost breaks your mind that wait, whoa, this is too much. Like it's so on the nose that it can't be true, but yet it's there.
Yeah, you like start fact checking everything, and it keeps matching up, and you're just like, well, I've had some of those moments, and you're just like, what the fuck? This like can't be. Your mind just feels like broken.
Right. It's like, did everyone know except for us?
Yeah.
I mean, like, did everybody? Because that's what it seems like.
There's clearly something out there, and I'm trying to figure out my spirituality. I was like kind of atheist, embarrassingly kind of young, and then I kind of slowly, partially, DMT, partially walking in some of the churches and mosques, these buildings, you can just feel the presence of God that were built, these magical buildings built, these type of things. You slowly start realizing how stupid atheism is. It's just absolutely idiotic that things just randomly popped here by chance.
Right, yeah, that's the other rabbit hole is we're talking about like the kind of the old world buildings and like the Gothic cathedrals and like the Roman basilicas.
Beautiful, these buildings.
And again, that's kind of similar. Like that's another rabbit hole that I enjoy because like I'm fascinated with architecture just in general, but that was more of a recent one that I kind of stumbled upon, where people talked about the mud flood in Tartaria,
Where
they
did
call
they say
it
the mud flood was? Like a long time ago or more recently?
I think that it was probably within the last 1,000 years, probably last 500 years.
You think there was one more recently? I've heard a little bit, but I haven't. Let's go into this a little bit because I haven't really gone down that rabbit hole yet. I hear the Tartaria, they call it, correct?
Yeah, and I think that what Tartaria is basically, it's a kind of a catch-all for crazy, unexplained buildings, and the mud flood. Like that's just the name, and I think it's a little generic, but people get it.
I think the name is so broad, and it can be total kooks talking about it versus legit stuff. That's why.
Right. What it was, I think, again, it was kind of a catch-all term, but what is interesting is that when you do look on old maps, there's a place called Grand Tartary, like lots of them.
Really?
And we're never really told about this empire. It's kind of like some people explain it like that maybe that was the Mongolian Empire because it's somewhere in North Asia. But it's really interesting that the idea that there's this architecture that we've all walked past a million times in our lives. And we just thought, that's pretty impressive, but you didn't think much of it because it's just there.
Yeah.
Until you actually started to research it a little bit of like when it was built and what the timeline in these buildings were built.
And how quick they built them.
How quickly they were built, and just the iconography and the stonework and just how like almost overbuilt they are. And in 2025, and I have a construction background, we had like a commercial drywall and plastering company. So we did like metal studs and things like that. And what we build today is just like the cheapest, most efficient building just to make your widgets in, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I need
all
this,
the modern machinery.
I need this to engage in commerce, and that's all it is. It's real practical. It's like a lot of these spaces are like metal building warehouses.
They don't care about beauty.
No, it's just about being practical. And then you're thinking like, well, we're told these people like in the 1800s, 1700s, early 1900s, these people were just worrying about the idea of not starving to death and freezing to death in the wintertime.
A lot of these places, the cities like San Francisco, they just got there. In the World Fair, these beautiful buildings. The story is most of them are torn down, but a few are still up. And I guess they put those together so quick. Like most of them are down, but a couple of them are still there, and they're absolutely magnificent.
Well, right. That's a good example. I always talk about San Francisco because I think, history class in school is terrible. It's so boring because you're just learning dates and names and you're not really knowing
to have one
why.
good teacher. Rather than that, it was just so boring. But when I had the one good teacher, it was like riveting.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, but history is really interesting. Yeah. I think a lot of it that we've been taught is just straight up lie, though.
Exactly.
It's just so many. It doesn't make sense. And I think that as somebody
there's clearly holes in it.
Who's inquisitive, I've always thought, well, I just don't get that. But I think that you hear a lot about 1492. You heard a lot about 1776. And then you hear about like the Civil War. But then you kind of jump like to modern times. And I thought the interesting part is I remember always hearing as a kid that America's actually a really young country. Of course, 250 years old sounds pretty old to me.
That's
when you're
nothing.
When you're a kid. No, but it's not a drop in the bucket when you think about, okay, so obviously the English and obviously the Europeans come to America in like the 1500s. But when you think about like when the western part of America is established, it is like lightning fast. Yeah. I mean, I never really considered when I looked at the dating or the quote unquote founding of these cities out west is how short a timeline is.
It's hard to make sense of it. Like San Francisco, 1849?
Well, San Francisco, we're told, this is what the narrative says, was not even discovered. The place was not even discovered. Like San Francisco Bay was not discovered until 1776 by the Spanish.
But no one was there still.
And in 1848, we're told that there was only 1,000 people there. And then, of course, you have the famous story of the gold rush, you got the 49ers, and then there's a boom there. Now, the crazy part is when you see the very earliest pictures of San Francisco, I want to say like there's a very famous panoramic shot from, I want to say 1873, early 1870s. So this is like 20 years after going from like 1,000 people there. It is a full city. Yeah. Like there's not one building under construction. There's a full harbor. There's not one soul on the street. You don't see one horse. You don't see a horse and buggy. You don't see donkeys. You don't see dogs. You don't see one person. And the city is 100% built out. And it's not just wooden shacks. It is stone, brick, Greco-Roman buildings.
How do they even
It's
get the materials out there even? Through ships, I guess?
Exactly. I mean, that's the question. And I don't even, I mean, just think about like, I mean, at least what you picture about the 1800s. You think like Tombstone.
Yeah, it was like
right?
rough time.
And that's what, I mean, I started to think, I was like, are those movies propaganda? Because I want to say the shootout to OK Corral was like in the 1880s.
So
like
these people go and just massively build up the city out of nowhere.
Well, there's another one that I feel like is propaganda is that, you know, so they had the Yellowstone series, right? And then they started doing the prequels and they had 1883.
Oh, I saw the first one. I didn't see that.
Yeah. But it's just a comical story. And it's one of the things you think about, like what they taught us in school about like the Oregon Trail, about how dangerous it was. But at the same time, like you think like San Francisco is a cosmopolitan city, but we're picturing like Kurt Russell and, you know, Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp. And it's just everyone shooting and cussing and, you know, playing cards out west. But you don't picture that there's Greco-Roman basilicas and Gothic cathedrals and how?
Some of the old buildings, those buildings are beautiful. Way more beautiful than what they're building today.
Well, right. So it was funny. So yesterday we went out to, I was out in LA and we had a chance to go see some stuff. And we went to Pasadena. And if you've ever seen the Pasadena City Hall, it looks like a castle. It looks built for like a king.
Yeah.
And so this is built like in the 1920s in California. But they're all over that area.
No, there's tons of them, and maybe people were just more confident back then. But what does that say? That's kind of sad. If like they used to be able to throw these buildings together so quick, and like San Francisco, a good example. They put this road in at one lane. It took them like 7 years because I was living there. It took the Golden Gate Bridge like 7 years to be built. It's like
right, yeah, exactly. So if you see how quickly they do government work today, well, again, it's just hard. I mean, again,
maybe it's a mix too. Like some of it doesn't add up, but also the people were, you know, a little more competent and less. The government just wait. You know, they're just trying to spend money. They're not trying to get things done quick.
I think that there's definitely something to that, and I'm not discounting the idea that people before us were definitely good with their hands, because I know that's true. Because
even still, it still doesn't add up though.
Well, the funny part about it is like, so you see what they built for government buildings like courthouses, city halls, post offices, prisons, insane asylums, and things like that. They're building like medieval castles for these kind of buildings. But then you see what the people lived in, and they lived in like shanty houses. They lived in
that's very odd.
Right. So it's kind of like that, you know, just being in construction today, if you have a guy who's real handy at work, usually his house is pretty sturdy and it looks pretty nice.
You're not going to build a castle and live in a shack.
If you could do it, you would probably build something.
If I could build a castle, I wouldn't go live in a shack.
Right.
I'm not a construction guy, so my place would probably be pretty shitty unless you help me out.
Right. Well, exactly. So
that's why you got to make friends.
So exactly. So you see that, and it's just something doesn't add up, and I just don't understand that. Just the idea again, like the 49ers. So are they responsible for building the city? I thought they were mining for gold. So were they building? Were they building the city, or were they mining for gold? And who's centrally planning the city? It's not like what you'd almost expect in your mind would be something like Tombstone.
That's an excellent point. Like,
right, you would have like
these
these shops that were all made of wood and kind of like track shops. Like you could imagine that makes sense. Tombstone makes sense. Now, San Francisco does not make sense.
All the hills they go up to with the houses all lined up beside them. No city planning.
San Francisco doesn't make sense. Seattle doesn't make sense. Portland doesn't make sense.
I've heard Chicago, but I haven't looked into that one.
Well, Chicago's another one.
There was fire in San Francisco. Was there fire in Chicago too, I think?
There is a great fire, in every city you've ever heard of. I mean, that's that's kind of the comical part of our history is when you actually do look into that. So these cities always have this narrative. They always have this narrative.
1906, I think it was.
Again, I believe that a lot of these places were burned down at some point. But when you actually look at like the San Francisco, I want to say that it had 6 or 7 major great fires and like 3 or 4 earthquakes. Really? So not only did they build the cities for one time, they built them like 5 or 6 times, we're told. They were originally out of wood. Then they decided to build them out of brick because it burned down. But like that story is repeated. And I think sometimes those stories are just false because
they're covering something.
Well, it wouldn't make sense. Well, just think about it like this. It wouldn't make sense if miners came over there and they started building Gothic cathedrals as soon as they got there.
That wouldn't make any sense at all.
But that's kind of what we're told about like the Mormon settlers, that as soon as they got to Utah, They
built all those beautiful buildings.
They started building these temples that resemble like Disney castles.
Well, this stuff sounds crazy, but look at our media today. They just lie to us blatantly to our face, and we're supposed to trust what they say about history.
Well, right. That's exactly. And I think that's why like some people think it's absolutely crazy to try to speculate or try to poke holes in established factual history.
Factual history.
But right. So again, if we don't believe the news from yesterday, well, what's fake news that's 10 years old?
It's hard knowing what's true from yesterday, like you said.
Right. So if you don't believe the news from today or yesterday, well, fake news that's 10 years old is fake history. So what about 50 years old? What about 100 years old? What about 200? What about 500 years ago? So if they lied about things today,
There's no way they would lie before.
Yeah, exactly. It would be very naive to believe everything they've said. And I think there's, like I said, it's funny, me and Brian were just talking about like these, just how dumb our history is sometimes. We went to the Griffith Observatory up up on the hill.
I was up there not too long ago. I had a friend
and, they have
in LA. We went and stopped by there for the first time.
Yeah, they have these famous scientists on the on the wall, and like they have Ben Franklin, right? And so what we're told as a kid about Ben Franklin discovered electricity by flying a kite with a key on it. And you're like, but if you really just sit down and think about how stupid that story is, it was like nobody knew that lightning was electric until the 1700s.
Right now.
All of human history. Ben Franklin discovered electricity by flying a kite.
They still teach that in schools, right?
Right, and like Isaac Newton. So how did Isaac Newton discover gravity? He was sitting under a tree and an apple hit him on the head. It's like, wow. This is why they teach children this crap, because they're the ones who would believe it, because nobody knew things fell down until Isaac Newton in 1666. That is dumb. It just, again, they're trying, I mean, it almost feels like, again, this is like, is this an esoteric story? Because like Isaac Newton, for instance.
I saw an apple fall. I came up with gravity.
Well, if you think about it like that, so what we're shown is like, again, from the Garden of Eden, is the idea that you have Adam and Eve, right? And there's an apple, the forbidden fruit. Now, whether it's an apple or not, I mean, I don't think that's important. That's what everyone believes it was. So anyways, Isaac Newton's sitting under a tree. And the tree, I believe, is symbolic of the knowledge of good and evil. That's why he got the knowledge. Because if you think about it, you go back to like the earliest Apple logos, that's what it was. It was Isaac Newton sitting under a tree, right? So what they're telling you is this knowledge came from this tree, came from the serpent. And then, so what does Apple have their logo as now? It's an apple with a bite out of it.
Yeah, I saw that and be like, that's a little bit odd.
Right, so it's an apple with a bite out of it. And then they sell the first Apple computer for $666.66.
Someone told me that before. I was just like, that's just so insane. It's like they're throwing it in your face.
Right. So it's like, that is what they're telling you.
Like
that's what they're telling you without telling you. And people just are kind of just numb to it. But it's like, once you can see it.
But it's not a joke. It's like the forbidden apple and then 666. It's like.
Right. But I mean, that's the interesting part. And I think that's when you get into like the mystery schools and the idea that these secret societies are satanic pizza files, right? They are Luciferians because they don't look at Lucifer as the devil. They look at him as an angel of light. He is symbolic of like, think about like the Statue of Liberty with the torch, illumination, knowledge. That's why they showed like the one eye.
What we view as evil, they view as good.
Well, it's, again, like I said, some of these beings that people kind of encounter, they are good to them because they're promising them things and they get the things.
They're giving them what they want, which is not good.
Well, it's like the idea that if you want things, again, go back to the Bible and you have Jesus is tempted by Satan in the wilderness. He's taken up to a high place and he's offered all the kingdoms of the world. Well, if that's what you want, he can give it to you. Now, again, like we know that comes with that deal comes with strings and
comes with a price.
And people have taken that deal.
You know, it's kind of like the politicians today. When you get paid something, that comes with a price.
Absolutely.
Completely separate subject. But back to the, not way off of subject. There was the, talking about movies earlier. Do you know the guy that started the Church of Satan? He helped put like propaganda in Hollywood too. What's his name? Something Levy.
Oh, Anton LaVey.
Yeah, LaVey. He was trying to put propaganda all through Hollywood. And
yeah, I honestly think that the whole idea of like the Church of Satan was likely propaganda too, is because that's what they want you to view as a Satanist, right?
Yeah, so like they're showing Satan as this like comical character. Right. There's another guy, Michael something. He founded the Church of Set. Mm-hmm. He was involved. Unfortunately, I don't know all the details about this guy, but he was involved like Iran Contra, And all these stories of the child sexual stuff, his name keeps coming up with these like crazy satanic kids supposed to be being raped, molested, murder. The same guy's name pops up all the time. And he was tied into the Church of Satan. Then he started his own, the Church of Set.
Well, so I think that's the thing. And that goes almost all the way back to the Book of Enoch stuff, where you have this group of angels. And so you kind of think about it in these ancient mythologies, you have these pantheon of gods, these different gods. And so the way I was raised in a Protestant church would be like, oh, all these other religions, they're just worshiping just things that are not even real. No real entities. It's just their imagination.
Yeah.
Like all these other gods don't exist. But I think biblically and just based on just basically all these other mythologies, they have like a pantheon of gods. So you think about these different angels came down. So there's one devil, but there's more than one Satan.
Lots of angels.
So I think that's what these other gods are. They're angels. They're different. Yeah, they're gods because they are superior beings to us and they came from heaven. So like if you worship them as God, they could be your God. But that's why I believe that when you do look into like Greek mythology, Roman mythology, you look into the Egyptian mythology, it's like that is the same thing. So you're
everywhere. There's always something, whether it's aliens, gnomes, like every culture, depending on their culture, they call them different things, but there's always some kind of beings that were
right. Like so aliens now.
So often they're crossbreeding with humans.
Well, aliens is like the newest thing because if you really think about it, like when they talked about like, now we talk about alien abductions, but back in the day it was fairies and gnomes.
Fairies, gnomes. It's always been something and all the patterns are similar. Yeah. Oh, shit. No worries. Better to get it fixed than to have the sound fucked up.
Yeah, the thing did come on pretty... Yeah, the thing got kicked on pretty loud.
Okay, we were saying the gnomes, the fairies.
Right, so I guess the point is that those stories have morphed into a science fiction novel. But the stories are very, very similar. Like, because back in the day, it would be like people are being kidnapped and who they're being kidnapped by, like the children of the goat. Like, that's exactly what they show in Peter Pan. Like, interesting, Pan is the goat demon. Pan is, like this being of the forest, and he kidnaps children. Well, Peter Pan plays the panpipes in, like, the Disney movie.
Damn.
And what does he do? He snatches kids out of their parents' house in their pajamas. And takes them to a place called Never Never Land, where you don't grow up, probably because you don't come back. You don't get a chance to grow up. And before he goes into the room, what happens? He sends a little scout who's a fairy. Now, like in the mythologies, fairies were not benevolent. They were demons. They were evil spirits. Now, of course, you get into like the Wiccan people, and they might say, "Oh no, the spirits are good."
That's crazy.
The spirits are good.
I never thought about that. That's pretty dark. Real quick, I forgot to give a shout out. We're filming in my brand new studio. This is Rocky's headquarters. We see this awesome building. They can't see it on the cameras. It's like, I don't know, did you ever do Methylene Blue or no?
No.
Okay. Personally, I like it. So it's one of my sponsors. One of the, I'll use them later if you want. You can try it later, but not on air.
Okay, sure.
It doesn't get you high or anything, but I wouldn't try something the first time on air. Be like, oh shit, I'm
start turning all blue.
Hallucinating. But no, the Peter Pan thing is crazy. A lot of Disney stuff has like dark stuff in it when you actually look.
Well, I think that's the thing. It's kind of like that's what I always say. They Disney-fy something. So they take some kind of a thing that is not good and they put a nice spin on it. It's kind of like the whole thing with like The Little Mermaid.
Hey guys, I'm demonetized everywhere. So if you want to support me and the podcast, go to fightbackpodcast.com and you can buy some cool merch like the shirt I'm wearing now. As many of you guys know, I run a free speech podcast. That comes as a price. It's being demonetized everywhere. So one way to support the podcast is to buy your books from AntelopeHillPublishing.com. Today's selection is The Trans-Industrial Complex. This book covers the money-making machine of the trans industries and shows it's not to help people, but to make money and get rich. So again, if you want to support the podcast, go to AntelopeHillPublishing.com and be sure to use promo code FIGHTBACK. That'll save you money and support me. Thank you.
A lot of those stories came from like Hans Christian Andersen. And then they're told, and obviously they might put a happy ending spin on it. But the truth about the story of The Little Mermaid is that in the mythologies, mermaids were not good either. They're sirens. So like sailors would have
would
to
look pretty-
be
their
warned.
sounds would-
Well, these sounds, this spell would allure
They couldn't
the
resist.
sailors, and then they would crash on the rocks. Because that's funny. Actually, funny if you think about like in the movie Peter Pan, that there is mermaids there, and so when Peter Pan takes, he's looking for a new girlfriend. He's taking Wendy there. The mermaids are trying to kill her because the mermaids are not good. But the way the Little Mermaid shows that she sings this song, and as soon as she does, the man, Eric, is entranced by the song. Now you think like as a kid, and you think like one surface level of knowledge, you're like, he's in love. She's very pretty and she's got a nice voice. But if you think about it, like in the mythologies,
Using
those
spells
songs
and
were spells. So that's
Casting
what
spells right in the Disney movie.
So that's what is happening to him. And the funny part about it, so eventually she wants to become human, right? She wants, legs and be able to walk on land. Well, she makes a deal with the devil. And what does she require from her? Well, for one, her soul, but she takes her voice. And then as soon as she becomes like a person, she sings and he's in love with her. So it's like they're showing you these things are sirens.
Spells out. You gotta be careful what your kids watch. I tell parents that like some of the shit they put all kinds of weird shit in the kid stuff. This stuff you can miss easy. Some stuff's like blatant now, where it'll be like trans shit and stuff. But stuff like this is really subtle that you could easily miss.
Well, right. So that it goes all the way back to some of these mythologies about like these hybrid creatures. I mean, even like in Little Mermaid's dad is Triton, so that was the son of Poseidon. Poseidon was supposedly founded the city of Atlantis, and how he did was he took wives of earthlings or humans, and he had 10 sons who were the 10 princes of Atlantis.
So they were half human, half god.
So they were demigods. So like that's the story that's in Genesis 6 is the Nephilim. That's the same story in the Book of Enoch, and
it's everywhere. That story.
The mythology of Atlantis.
Humans.
Well, I mean,
same with aliens. Same with I noticed how it's everywhere.
Yeah, right. So the story of Atlantis, if it was a real place, and I believe it could be, it's really interesting. If it could just almost be a straight allegory for the time before the flood, because you have this advanced culture, right? This very advanced civilization, and what I want to say Plato told people was that the divine spirit kind of dwindled in these people, and then it can be very corrupt. And then the gods, Zeus and the other gods, decided to judge this place with the flood. But I mean, so you have genetic corruption that gets worse. The place becomes very evil and sick, and then it's judged by a flood. Demigods, angels, so you think about like Poseidon being like in the Greeks, he's just, a god of the sea. But could that have been an angel? And that's what that's what his Greek name is. It's
almost like all these different cultures they see it's the same thing. They're just calling them different names.
Right. I mean, absolutely.
It's the same. It could be an alien. It could be a demon. It could be just whatever you think it is. But if it's the same, that's what I realized. There's something out there. Once you have a few weird encounters, then you see everywhere, all different time periods. It's always something. They call it different names, but there's always something supernatural. People, and often not good. Sometimes good too.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, I think that's what I'm saying. Like you can't discount all the weird and the supernatural. And I think that's, again, going back to academia, where we live in a place where, I think even just like the essence of a person, that we have a mind, body, and a spirit.
Yeah.
And we know intuitively, when something's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So how do we know?
I always follow my feelings. Like they follow your gut, but I think you really get signals to your gut.
It's like we know that there's a spiritual dimension. It's here, and it's not always easily explainable. But we know when we've had encounters and weird things that it's real. It's just because you can't explain it scientifically doesn't mean it's not real. And if only one story about these encounters is true, then it's real.
Exactly.
A million people could be lying about it, but if one person's telling the truth, then it is real. And I think, that these people, again, to think about just mythologies in general, we're told today that, it's a myth. That means it's not true. But that's not really what a mythology was to the Greeks. It was a way to tell an oral tradition. It's some kind of probably maybe not a fact, maybe not exactly a true story, but a story that came from a true place, was meant to not be forgotten.
These parts of it were probably true.
Right. It came from a true place. And I think that's why, again, that these mythologies do line up so much. And again, I think it's interesting the way that we don't even see it, that we still retell these stories, because now it's Marvel and Disney, Disney, it's DC Comics.
Yeah.
Like the stories are
So the
stories.
comics basically taking the exact same stories, mythology, and retelling the same stories.
It's like
Not exact same, but very.
it's
similar.
like the old gods or fallen angels in spandex and capes. Like that's
Like
what
superheroes are like the gods, basically.
right. So you have some of them who are partially gods. Some of them like Thor are actual gods, and I mean real Norse god mythology.
And there's like the demons too. There's the villains and the
Right. So some of them are good, some of them are bad, but they're all about like the world's greatest heroes. And so that's what's interesting in the Bible. It mentions that the Nephilim or the giants were the spawn of these angels and men, and they were known as the heroes of old or the men of renown. And when I first learned that in the Bible, I was like, the Bible's talking about like Hercules. It's talking about Perseus. It's talking about like these mythologies. And I don't know. I guess I knew kind of in my heart of hearts that would these stories still be retold if they were completely made up?
I think there's definitely parts of it that are true. It can't. It's just the same thing over and over everywhere you go.
Well, just think about those buildings we were talking about. That it's I don't know. It's really hard to square the idea that these people were both very smart, very capable, and then they put images of gods who never existed on their buildings, right? You can't really explain it. It's kind of like the same way that you talk about like the secret societies and these people being Luciferians, and they're kind of showing you why they do what they do. But they are the most powerful people in the world. So
exactly, these people have the power, they have the money.
So don't they kind of have the receipts to say that this actually works?
That's why people think, oh, it's just crazy things. They're trying to, then why do these people have the power? They clearly believe this stuff.
Right. So if the Greeks and the Romans conquered the whole world and they believed in these things,
then maybe it's worth looking into.
Maybe they knew
like
something.
You said, maybe God, maybe they're saying don't mess with these other, arts and things because they're not real. Maybe it's because they are real and there are other things out there that can.
Right. So now like that, I think that's the kind of like maybe the more nefarious part about it is that yes, the Norse worship Thor, they worshipped Odin. And now you have little idols in kids' rooms because they have a little Thor doll because they watch the Marvel movies and they don't even really realize what they're doing. And I do think that, we're not held accountable by God when we're like completely innocent, naive.
Like if you're
like the kid doesn't know what he's doing, but
it's a false idol, you could argue.
But I do also think that there is in the spiritual realm that it works on the idea of like permission and consent. Kind of think about like the myth of like the vampire, where he's like, "Aren't you going to invite me in? I can't come in unless you invite me in." And he's not telling you what he's going to do, but he's making sure that you invited him in. And then as soon as you do, he says, "I'm not leaving."
So it's like they say that they want you to give permission,
right? So it's like, is that why they put these messages in the movie? Because it's like, I did tell you. You didn't believe me, but I actually did tell you.
I told you, so it's your fault.
Right. So now you're held accountable for that. Because, like, is that how the spiritual realm operates?
Way of looking at it, because it's your fault because I told you. So you knew because I showed you right here.
Yeah.
Along with it.
Yeah, it's your fault because you didn't take me seriously, but I told you a bunch of times.
The guys saying they sold their souls. Like, they straight up told you.
Right. What was that? There was one of these rappers who was talking about it, and people were saying,
you
sold your soul. And like in one of these like live streams. And the guy said, "And you listen to my music and you're coming to hell with me." And I was like, dang, that is really intense. Because I mean, like that's what, I guess that's the thing. It's like that when you hear what these people are saying and then you see the lyrics that they're writing, some of them are kind of nonsensical. You're like, that's like, what does that even mean? How many times have you sang a song and you're like, I really don't know what that means.
Yeah. It's like most of these guys aren't like talented. And a lot of times they're pushing really bad stuff too.
And then, but sometimes they ask the artist, what did that song mean? And they said, it's gibberish, it didn't mean anything. And you're like, it probably did mean something. It probably, just because we don't know what it means, but it is that idea of like, that I was just holding the pen and the thing was writing itself.
Yeah, that's a little weird, like casting spells.
So
almost.
why
like, what are you getting put into you?
So why is that? And you think about like the way that these songs, some of them are earwormed into your head and it's going over and over. And it's like, what effect does that have on us?
No, I thought about that too. Like, oh, maybe I gotta be careful of the music I listen to, especially once you have kids and stuff. You're like, oh, you gotta be careful what you put on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. So before I started like kind of researching all this stuff, I'm just like everybody else. I mean, like I said, I've seen all the movies, I've seen all the TV shows, I went to all the concerts.
Don't overthink it
and when I did start to pay attention to that stuff, I've had like spiritual encounters in my house. I'll tell you about one it kind of relates to all this stuff. Is I was kind of going through this spiritual transformation. I was actually watching this movie called They Sold Their Souls for Rock and Roll. And I guess it was becoming so real to me, like that. I mean, I believed, it was kind of like when you read the Bible and you're like, do you believe just the parts that are acceptable to believe, or do you believe all of it?
Yeah.
And then when you're thinking about this spiritual dimension and these entities, and I was watching the show, and it was laying out this case, and it was kind of tying a lot of famous musicians to Aleister Crowley. And when you kind of make that connection of him, and again, he's all into the esoteric.
Famous. I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I mean, so he's the connection between him and like the Beatles. He's like on the album cover to Sgt. Pepper's.
Wasn't he the one that was doing that like black magic or the sex magic?
Sex magic. So when you see like magic spelled with a K, that's like kind of like Aleister Crowley's mark, because the 11 is the magic number. K is the 11th letter. And so you think about like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, blood, sugar, sex, magic. But the magic is spelled with a K. And of course, it's about sex magic. And that's what Crowley was.
There's definitely something to
that's
that,
what
though.
Crowley
People are getting a lot of powers with the sex magic.
That's what Crowley was promoting. So I was watching this. And I think it's funny because I grew up in I went to Christian schools and stuff. And they used to play this one documentary like that. And it was called Hell's Bells. And of course, you're watching. Of course, I was like in middle school, and we were just like, "This is so dumb." I mean, like, no, they don't actually worship the devil. They're like, AC/DC's doing it for shock value. Like, Alice Cooper. It's all an act. They're just trying. They're trying to freak you uptight Christians out. But I was, again, I'm not going to argue if somebody says. I mean, yeah, they literally have like a song called "The Number of the Beast" and stuff like that.
Putting it right in your face.
Is it satanic?
They're saying what it is, yeah.
But when I started to see this documentary was playing out and showing how Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, Elvis, and kind of like more bands that I never thought of those as satanic. But like Led Zeppelin, I want to say Jimmy Page bought Aleister Crowley's house that was on Lake Loch Ness. Yes.
I didn't know any of this.
It's called a Bleskin house. This is actually a really interesting story.
Doing like, I wouldn't say necessarily satanic, but magic rituals. I don't know what they call them. They don't call them satanic, but it's very...
Led Zeppelin. Jimmy Page was like obsessed with Crowley. So he bought this house on what they call it Bleskin House in Lake Loch Ness. And the story behind this house is absolutely crazy. It was built on the site of a former church. And the church that used to be there burned down with the congregation inside of it.
Oh my God.
Right.
Dark.
And so this house was built there. And so this house had like this tunnel out to this crypt where all the graves are.
Wow. What's so dark.
Right. It was so dark. Like, if you research the history of this house, so many people connected to it died. Even Crowley got freaked out and left because he had people having
something with being too intense with him.
Being tormented there. But anyways, yeah, so Jimmy House buys this house, and he, like, the whole, I guess, mythos of like Led Zeppelin, like I said, I never really just considered that they were like into the dark arts. But Jimmy Page is wearing like
pictures they had on the thing. It totally makes sense now that you mention it.
He's wearing like a wizard outfit.
Connect it sometimes. Yeah.
He's wearing like a wizard outfit. Seriously, like that's what part of his costume is to perform on stage. He's wearing like a wizard, and he's doing like kind of this thing where he's pointing in all the cardinal directions. It's like they're broadcasting spells.
Yeah, I think I used to like laugh at this stuff when I was a teen and think it was like idiotic. But then you look back and you're like,
well, that's the thing
to it, because
that's the thing.
They take it very seriously. These people aren't playing like the Crowleys and stuff.
No, well, I think that's the thing, and I think that's kind of when I first started kind of exposing this stuff. I would say, I don't care if you believe it or not. I'm going to show you that they believe it.
Yeah, they believe it at least.
If they believe it, and they're the world's biggest fan,
seeing the powerful people in the world believe it. That's when I started being okay. There's probably something here.
There's something there, but the point is, so I was watching this documentary, and I was falling asleep in my room, and I know kind of better now to kind of watch real dark stuff before I go to bed.
Yeah, I've learned that too.
But I think that like when this was kind of like I was kind of like in a real kind of transitional period of my life, and I was really kind of waking up. And I think this is likely why I was falling asleep, and my room just, I normally have like a night light to get to the bathroom, and I have like my windows kind of opened a little bit. So there's a little bit of light in there. But I remember my room just being pitch black dark, and it felt cold. And I almost felt like the darkness was shifting around the room. And I was getting freaked out. And I'm not like into like this kind of like spiritual encounters. I'm not the kind of, I'm the kind of guy who raises eyebrow when people start telling me like that really happened. But yeah, this was absolutely happening. And when it was happening, I was like, I thought, well, I got to rebuke this in the name of Jesus because like this is scary. And when I did, I remember I felt like this warmth go from like the tip of my toes all the way up to the top of my head, like slowly raise up. And that sounds like a comforting thought, except it freaked me out even more because it was like
feeling was so strong.
This is real. Like this is absolutely real. I feel it. I can almost hear like a whisper in the room. And as I did that, I was like, I had a hard time going to sleep that night. I remember
I could imagine. Yeah, if I would have been sleeping.
I flipped open my my phone. As soon as that I did, I was like, I had like one scroll on Instagram, and there was this Bible account that had like Psalm 23 on there. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil. And I remember just thinking like, what a night. So eventually I get to sleep. And the next day I hear my daughter talking to my wife, and she's describing a nightmare she had. And I was like, oh, interesting. I was like, come here, sweetheart. Tell me what happened. And I think she's about 5 or 6. And what she said was, this is the same. So she's having the nightmare the same night this has happened to me. And she tells me, she said, well, I couldn't tell if I was asleep or awake, but a fairy came in my room, and this fairy morphed into this thing with sharp claws, sharp teeth, and then scratched her. And I was like,
oh my God,
that happened the same night. And what's crazier is that my old neighbor gave my daughter this thing called a fairy door. It was like these kind of like a fake door you kind of stick on the wall.
Like let a fairy in or whatever.
And I was like, I know it sounds insane, but like I said, if the spiritual world works on consent, like
is that door down?
Is it oh yeah, that thing went in the trash. But I mean, is it possible that is kind of like the same thing with the vampire? Aren't you going to invite me
consent?
In? Well,
I guess that's why that would be in the mythology.
Is that not an invitation?
Comes from somewhere.
And I just started to think at that point, I'm like, how did demons get in my house? I mean, because that was like definitely demonic. Like the whole night was, I mean, again, that's this. No,
freaked you out that then your daughter had the same nightmare. Something obviously was off.
Well, you think about it like that. Was this something that I did to give consent? Was that consent? Like, I guess that's the thing. And so I think that kind of basically really got me to research this a lot more of saying like, this is real. Like what that they sold their souls for rock and roll are showing you is that these people are admitting it. And of course, if you think, if they're admitting it in the music, well, I mean, what do you think? The politicians and the people in the movies don't do the same things. So then you just think like this is really widespread. So then you think about the kind of music you listen to, the kind of content you consume. It's like, is that in some way consent? Imagine if you're just singing along a lyric that's giving consent. And I thought, I mean, again, I'm not saying I know exactly how it works.
No, but it's a very interesting question you're asking right now, and I don't know the answer to it, but it's very interesting.
Well, right. I mean, so if you really think about it, like if this can affect you, this could potentially affect people you love too. And it just started to make me think like that it's not me telling, because I'm not one of these people who tell you, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that.
Preaching not to do it, but just pay attention.
I'm just saying like
pay a little attention to that type of stuff.
That it is something about like the Bible mentions that we should be as wise as serpents and innocent as doves. You know, like that's what it's saying. It's being shrewd, being aware. Like the devil is a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. So you be sober and vigilant. I just started to think, yeah, I don't know how it works. And I still don't know how it all works. But I did think like that if that is why the demons influence the music, is so they have access to you.
The songs, it's almost like spells going in our ears.
Right. Imagine, like I said, imagine singing along a lyric.
They would sneak in weird ways like this, like you're saying.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I just think
if it's obviously a devil or demon, you're going to be like, no.
Well,
not everyone, but like me and you.
Well, you think about it again, like, everybody's talking about Stranger Things now. So the very first episode of like Stranger Things, the kids are playing Dungeons and Dragons. Same thing that's happened in E.T., right? So they're playing Dungeons and Dragons. And so the kid gets attacked by the Demogorgon, right? And what the show is showing you is, as this is happening in the game, there's a real demon that's coming out to snatch this kid. I mean, that's the same. It's funny because it is like the same thing that happens in E.T. Except guess what? E.T.'s an alien. Right. Alien, so like, are they kind of showing you like that's kind of the same thing? Except E.T. of course is a nice alien, but But still, it's a being from the heavens that came
No,
down.
that's why I kind of came to conclusions. Demons, angels, interdimensional beings. It's all
Right.
kind of the same.
Absolutely.
Like real quick, you're talking about the rebuke you in the name of Jesus. Bryce Mitchell, you know who it is? He's a fighter. He
Oh, yeah,
said
absolutely.
A
Yeah,
demonic thing was happening, and he just said, rebuke you in the name of Jesus, and instantly just went away. He's like, keep that in mind if you're ever in a situation. Then you saying that's like interesting.
Well, I mean, as a Christian, yeah, obviously that's the right way to go, because it's like that Jesus could just speak and just say, leave. You know what I mean?
Detail of the story, but it was an instant change. I think he said a flood. He felt like a flood of energy, and that's interesting.
Well, right. I mean, and people do talk about like alien encounters and experience the same thing, where like they're experiencing alien abductions, and these encounters stop when the name of Jesus is invoked. So it's like,
Oh, I didn't know that with alien encounters.
well, right.
Again,
But I mean, I think,
I've
but
never
I like,
asked Jesus to
but
come
like
in and
we
help.
said,
That's
it's
what
like,
Bryce was just being like, hey, if you ever need that,
well,
keep that
right.
in mind.
That's what I'm saying is like that, as you said, if the aliens were called fairies at one point, or they were just called demons to some people, well, they respond to the same things, because I think that's the thing that actually me and my buddy Brian, have had on the show. We've been talking a lot about that, where like in the show Stranger Things, like the demon is shown as being real and physical, but you kind of see that it's really not real and physical sometimes, because it's just it's like the flickering of the lights. It's disturbance. The thing is shown to be ripping through the wall to come out, but then when the encounter's over, there's no hole in the wall, because it's like that we can maybe make these things more real to us, but they are like, it's almost like a piercing the veil. It's like you're seeing into the spirit, where the spiritual world is real and it's all around you.
Spiritual world is definitely real, and we've always known that all through human history until the last couple hundred years. And it's like, oh, it's science, and obviously parts of science are real too, but both can coexist.
Well, science is just being able to basically
analyze things.
Is just
It's
analyzing
it
the
doesn't
things
explain it,
that
it's just
the
trying to
things that
analyze
are
things.
just because it doesn't behave the laws of physics. I mean, by that measure, it is a supernatural phenomenon.
I think humans have become just too arrogant, thinking we know it all, and we just know a tiny little sliver.
Well, right. I mean, just think about like the UFO phenomenon. Is that they say some of these crafts do not obey the laws of physics.
I've seen some of those videos.
Well, doesn't that by definition mean that they're supernatural?
Or we have the laws of
If
physics.
they don't obey the laws of physics, therefore maybe they're not physical, and maybe they are supernatural. Because otherwise, how do you explain it?
Exactly. Or we're
Because you're not
wrong
supposed
about
to be
the laws
able
of
to
physics.
You're not supposed to be able to do that. And I think that's the interesting part, is like that, especially in the conspiracy game, is the fact that for years conspiracy theories, oh, they're hiding aliens in Area 51.
Now they show them to us, and
now they're really trying to act like that they're real. Like they literally have a guy at the Pentagon who's like supposedly like their UFO guy, and he's
showing us the alien. No, that is a little weird. Like, why are they trying to tell us there's aliens now?
Yeah, now we know that.
Now we don't trust them.
We thought they were lying before, and now we still think they're lying, but they're lying in a different way. And
They're
it's just
showing how sometimes they go into the water and stuff too, allegedly, at like crazy high speeds and depths. And
well, right. That's the interesting thing, is like that most of these alien, these UAP encounters, people don't see them coming down from outer space. They're already here. And if you really think about it, like as much as the world is covered with water and as unexplored as the oceans are, wouldn't that be a place where they could hide if they could? Well, I mean, think if they could come from outer space, well, then they could obviously come from the ocean, because there's lots of pressure and there's no oxygen. But I think that's kind of what they show you in the movies too, is like was the movie The Abyss.
yeah, it just goes right down the ocean.
They go down this trench,
places.
and there's aliens down in the ocean.
Supposedly there's been where they've been tracking it on like the sonar stuff, when they shoot under and they keep going at speeds that don't make sense underwater. And I don't know enough about the details behind that, but
well, it's hard to know it's true. But I mean, obviously, even like as a Christian, I think I can acknowledge that there's things that are unidentified,
I think both can
unexplainable.
be true, like God and Christian, and there can also be these strange things that we don't understand still, because God is way beyond what me and you can comprehend.
Well, I mean, just thinking, like, just to get technical, like angels are not from here, so that means they're extraterrestrial.
That's an
like by
point.
definition, they're not from here.
They would be rather it's a different dimension, different plane, different planet.
Right, and I think, but that's interesting how the UFO phenomenon has kind of shifted the conversation. Where like now they're not saying they come from Mars. Now they're saying they're interdimensional. What was it? It was I want to say Representative Luna. I think she's from Florida.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, she was on like I want to say it was Patrick Bet David's show, and she was saying that there's these skiff reports, and she can't really tell all the details, but these crafts are real. And she was tying it to internet dimensional beings from ancient texts that were removed from the Bible, such as the Book of Enoch. And I was just like, this seems like bait. Like, but this is like too on the nose for me.
Like they wouldn't like feed it to her though, of all people.
I know, but it just seems. I guess that's the thing. It's like it's so strange. Where I know that they're trying to push us in some kind of direction, but I'm like, it is kind of strange where guys like Tucker Carlson, where he started to talk about lots of things that we've been talking about for years, and he's like quickly moving to that, and that's what he was talking about. Like,
I think he's genuine. Some people don't. I think he just was pushing propaganda his entire life, and he kind of realized that he'd been pushing lies and bullshit. Wanted to do what's right. I could be wrong though.
No, I mean, I think that I like to believe the best of people. I'm also not naive.
I think he is his whole life pushing propaganda though for the CIA and whatnot.
Oh, absolutely. So. I mean, his dad and connected with was it Voice of America and all that stuff. Yeah, it's very likely that he has got connections, and I think that. But I'm one of those. Definitely. I guess when I'm one of those guys where I just think it's interesting to me because when I started first talking about a lot of this stuff, and I was talking to my dad about lots of these things. And my dad was like really skeptical. Of course, he thought his son went crazy. And then eventually I kind of would slowly get him along to some of these conclusions because I believe in some crazy stuff, but I usually be able to show my work. I can show you the steps of why I believe what I believe.
You got there,
yeah. And so like I could convince him to a few things, but then there were certain things that would be like, oh, that's not touching that. And I do kind of wonder, he passed away like a couple years ago, and I just kind of wonder, like, what would he have thought about somebody like Tucker Carlson saying this now, though? Saying the same things his son had told him a couple years ago.
By demons in bed.
Well, I mean, but you're just like, I mean, that's why I say like that, whether Tucker is genuine or not, I think it's more interesting that he's exposing a completely different audience than I've got to this thing. The boomers are listening to him. The boomers are probably mostly not listening to me.
No, listen to us, but he has that audience. That's why I think he's an important voice.
No, that's why I think it is important. And I think that like any podcaster, I'm sure you like listen to, like, do I agree with anybody 100% of the time? Absolutely not. So like you got to listen to things. I agree
with someone 100%. There's no one I agree with 100% of the time.
You got to spit out the bones.
You got to look at, the majority of this guy I like. He covered the cow. Did you ever see those cow, they get like dissected, their blood
kind of
drained.
Like, that they were, what they're kind of showing in South Park and stuff like that.
These cows, they get like their blood drained. It doesn't make any sense how they're killed. It
sounds very ritualistic.
You got to look it up. It's bizarre, but it's like, it doesn't make sense how humans would even kill them.
Or even like the crop circles and stuff like that. Like where does that stuff come from? But I mean, like how could we, I guess like, of course some of them are probably hoaxes, but some of them are such weird geometric patterns. But I think that's probably significant too, because you think like how you write like demons' names and angels' names, they're not written like your name or my name. They're written in sigils. So that's why I kind of wonder if like, are those crop circles? Is that what it is?
Like a sign.
Is that a sigil? So from the way the movies are showing us, this is for aliens. But I mean, like, again, if an angel and an alien are really, it's kind of just like, are we talking past each other? What, like in witchcraft, what they would do is, like you see in the movies, they're about to do this spell and they put this sigil on the floor and then they get in the middle of it. Because what that's supposed to do is this sigil is supposed to bind a demon or control a demon, and it's supposed to protect you from them. So is that what they're doing with these crop circles? And could that be related to the fact that they are having these, like these cows are getting, their blood drained?
Yeah, the cow shit's weird.
Is that a ritual sacrifice thing?
Could be. And then, back to like I said earlier, there's these things you only can see from way up in the sky, all these like patterns built out.
Oh, yeah, There was no
planes back then.
The Nazca lines?
Yeah, it's like, how
were there planes back then?
Yeah, exactly. Or were there planes? That's bizarre. Why else would they be there? Why would they build these giant things? I guess to show the gods, maybe?
Well, I mean, it's hard to wrap your mind around, like, how would they even know what they were doing unless they could, somebody had a view from down there and say, oh, yeah, a little bit further. Because some of these things are absolutely massive. There's actually, I forgot what they call it. There's one in California. It's not quite as advanced, but it's a giant looking kind of primitive man looking thing. That's like in the desert in California. Those kind of things are actually less common. I mean, more common than you think because
you don't see them.
Well, it's kind of like the same thing, like where you see like shows like that do kind of expose like the kind of the alternative history stuff, where you see megaliths everywhere. Well, we were only ever told about the pyramids in Egypt, but then you didn't know that there was pyramids everywhere. You know, there's pyramids in China and
Mexico,
Bosnia.
China. They I don't think they've even gone through the ones in China.
There's things like in the Amazon rainforest that it's so dense and thick that we have no idea how many temples are in these places.
There might be massive lost cities that are thinking now.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So that's the same kind of thing when you do see the Nazca lines and you think, okay, well, that's a one-off, but it's not. These things are even in America. And I think that's where you get into like that. Yeah, there's a lot of mystery. And I think that even the whole story about like the Wright brothers, it's like, okay, they took the first flight. Well, but people were using airships before they were flying in planes. So is it really hard to believe that certain people could have the idea for an airship a long time ago? Like a hot air balloon. I mean, that doesn't.
Sure, they've definitely thought about it. If they've achieved it, then it's possible.
Well, in the narrative that the first time anybody discovered electricity was by a guy flying a kite in the 1700s.
Oh, wow, I discovered electricity.
Right, exactly. So that, I mean, even like what is in the Bhagavad Gita in the Hindu mythologies, they got flying crafts in their pictures and stuff like that.
That's true. They do in a lot of things. Well, even like Tesla, he believed that the pyramids were these giant power conductors.
Power station, yeah.
And he's obviously an intelligent guy, knew much more about power than almost anyone else in the world.
Well, that's what everyone, of course, when you stopped believing the nonsense about these people built it with slaves and they're built to be tombs, even though they find no mummies in them, you do kind of wonder, like, what are they for? It does make sense that what if these were like giant power stations?
Like giant free energy. That was his theory, I believe.
I think that makes sense. I mean, it should go without saying now. Of course, if you're at this point in the podcast, shut it off. Nobody believes that slaves built that and they built that with copper tools. So they had technology. So if they had technology, did they have some kind of electrical technology? Did they have free energy? They had something. So it makes sense. What if that's what is the remnant of it? I mean, it's kind of like that when they built the Hoover Dam, I want to say it was, forget the guy's name who actually did the angel statues on the memorial. Have you seen that?
I didn't know they had those there, Hoover Dam.
Oh, it was Oscar J. Hansen. He compared the Hoover Dam to the Great Pyramid. Interesting. And I think about that interesting, like it's all the concrete and all the thing, and it's a hydro
purpose. It's not just hydroelectric randomly.
Yeah, I mean, it's of course the scale and the size of and all the stone and all the things that go into it, but what if that
makes more sense than the pyramids just randomly putting all that effort, by a bunch of slaves, and they show how they had done it. They'd had to it was just like almost impossible the amount of wood they would have needed, and
right. And I
haven't seen those with my own eyes, so it's probably it's easier when you see something with your own eyes to be like, oh yeah, this is not possible.
Well, again, it's not practical to build that for a king, and even like the Great Pyramid, the way that they try to explain it as being a tomb. It's like as soon as this guy became pharaoh, he'd have to start working on his tomb. Is that really what he's going to put all his research?
I'd be like, oh, I'm taking that instead. Fuck that guy. This is going to be my tomb.
I'd be like, let's work on things that are going to help me while I'm alive. How about this? I don't really want to start working on my tomb yet. Yeah. But that's kind of what they would have needed to do because they were saying what the Great Pyramid had, I want to say 2 million stones and they're 2.5 tons each. And you would have to set one like, I don't know, like every 2 minutes for like, if it was built in 20 years, every 2 minutes, like 365. It's not possible.
If I was king of Egypt, I wouldn't be like, oh, what tomb am I going to make? I would go enjoy life doing that guy's else. Tomb. Yeah.
I'm going to take the last guy's
I'll just kick that guy out of his fucking tomb and go
We're going to build stuff for me to live in. Yeah, so that makes
absurd.
That makes no sense. And it also makes sense that you're going to kill the people. Like, that's the other thing. It's kind of like in all these ancient kingdoms, they would kill the king. So like if you made a bunch of people work on your tomb and they're getting nothing out of it, that's the kind of thing that gets you assassinated as a kid.
If I was having to build some giant tomb and the guy wasn't doing much for my country, I don't think I'd be very happy. That sounds worse than our politicians.
So right, it's
pretty much the same.
Without saying, it should go without saying. It's impractical to do that. It's not practical today. Yeah. Why would it be practical then?
You're going to have a revolt probably. If that's your whole, everything's built around building these buildings just for your grave, people are going to be like, nah, fuck you.
So I think that when you do see these older buildings, and again, we were talking about the kind of the Tartaria type stuff, that they had a way of building things that were aesthetically beautiful, but I believe they also had a practical application. And I think that like those kind of things had something to do with acoustics. And who knows, the pyramids might have
I
too.
think where they were built is what Tesla said as well.
Well, people talk about like the magnetic points and the certain parallel it's on. I think that's where all like you can go back to the megaliths, and you can talk about like kind of the more impressive like Greco-Roman and like Gothic cathedrals have something to do with like the ether, the ionosphere, and like electromagnetism. Because if you really think about it, like there is energy in the air.
Yeah.
If these people
pull it out.
Yeah, how do you extract that energy?
It's clearly there. There's energy everywhere. We just haven't figured out how to pull it out for free. Or maybe we have.
Maybe we have. And I think that's why like people wonder like, well, why would they lie about any of this stuff? Well, I mean, the modern school system's based on John D. Rockefeller's education system.
Medical system too. I mean, a lot of that's bullshit.
The stories we get about America are based on you have all these influential robber barons. And they're credited with everything.
They just start giving everything away just for the kindness.
But it's all about like them monetizing this petroleum system, like that's supposedly like limited, right? Like we're going to run out of it one day, so we got to switch to something else. But they have this kind of artificial scarcity of oil. But regardless, like they don't want to find green technology because there's too much money in selling oil.
It's like the medicine, they don't want to heal your sickness.
So would there be pretty good incentive for them not to rediscover a free system of energy, because then that might free us? And I think that's obviously why they would lie. I mean, they would lie because they want to monetize every part of our life.
Why do they lie to us today on the news? It's always for their gain.
I mean, it's
constantly lying about everything.
It's always about following the money pretty much too. It's like, so if they want to lie about something, they would, of course, prevent us from being set up in this matrix. That if we get a free energy at our houses, we probably wouldn't need to leave as much. We would probably wouldn't have to go to this 9-to-5 job you hate. And that's the thing. It's like, so the education system is supposed to make you just smart enough to work the widgets in the factory, but dumb enough to never question the fact that you go there every day and you hate it.
Yeah, they don't teach you zero critical thinking at school. Like nothing to get ahead. It's just like very basic.
Can you memorize this stuff? Can you regurgitate? Can you do what you're told? That's what it's about. And I think that's what really scares people about asking these kind of questions, because it really does chip away at like everything people have built their lives upon. They're built upon like, because probably a lie.
Because if a lot of it's a lie, it starts getting scary. If some things, sometimes lies are so big, they start being like, damn, if that's true, then that means something really dark's happening.
Well, right. And that's where a lot of normies will just shut off, because they'll be like, what? This is too weird. Why do I need to know any of this stuff? And it's like, the truth is like, well, if you can't ask these kind of questions, though, but I mean, it's like sometimes the truth is scary, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you really want?
It's very scary.
I mean, it's like literally. I mean, this gets overused, but like the Matrix, it's like you take the red pill. I'm gonna show you how. I'm not gonna have all the answers, but I can show you how deep this rabbit hole goes.
I don't blame people for taking the blue pill.
If you take the blue pill, you can wake up in your bed and you can believe whatever you want to believe.
Wake up, watch some sports.
You can go eat the fake steak. You can enjoy it. Maybe your life won't suck so bad. Because that's what they're showing you is like that in the real world, when you actually do learn, it's like, it's nauseating. It makes you throw up sometimes.
Sometimes you start wishing like, I wish I wasn't thinking all these thoughts and
questioning all these things. Wish I would have took the blue pill.
Go back to where I don't pay attention to anything.
Right. So you have to ask tougher questions. But I mean, I think that's why I used to really kind of wear the term conspiracy theorist on my sleeve. But the more I like truth or better.
Yeah, because there's some dumb conspiracy theories. I'm kind of careful who I talk to. I don't want to talk to complete quacks.
There's a lot of dumb
things.
Ones.
You got to be kind of careful looking around.
Some people know just enough to be dangerous, but the more you look into it, it's like so. But I think that's the important thing about like the truth, because when you do learn something that's true, the truth should change you. You and I cannot change what's true. Like if this truth comes from God.
If I learn something's true, I don't believe. Then I got to change myself to that truth.
We have to change based on the truth. Like now, obviously, the world wants us today to say, this is my truth. So I can twist the truth into
my truth,
something very comfortable for me. But that's not the way it works. Yeah. Like truth changes you. And I think the truth is that people don't want to change. So they really don't want to know what's true.
They'll lie to themselves.
So that's why they would say, well, why do I need to know that? Because really what you're saying is, you're bumming me out now. Like my life is pretty good right now.
Yeah.
But I think that's why a lot of times people like me, like I had to kind of go through like a rough time in my life to basically say, this whole thing is just a sham. All this stuff is just, I'm just tired of being lied to. And I said that I want to build my foundation up like on the rock. I want to build it up on the truth. And so when I've done that, it's like, kind of when you do kind of hit a bottom point in your life, you're like, what else can they take from me? Like, I don't even care now. So like, if you tell me that the world's run by satanic pizza files, I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, it all checks out. This place is pretty dark. And I think that a lot of them, like eventually you do kind of get to some of these conclusions and you're like, it's tough, but if you do kind of, I believe that my faith in God has always helped me say, well, it's going to be fine though. I don't know how it's
important. I think people need religion or God. People, act like they don't. It's like all throughout history, we've had that relationship with God, and just to not have anything to believe in bigger. It's a dark world.
Well, you have to have so I have my faith in Christ. Like it leads me to continue to do what I think is right, regardless if I know how everything's going to work out. Because I do believe ultimately it will work out for my good.
But you got to do what's good and what's true. I think truth's really important.
Something drives me to do that, and I think that I don't know. I guess I just really like things to make sense, and a lot of these kind of when you do kind of. Again, like you go to school and you're like, I was the kind of kid who always asked questions about things. And I was like,
you piss teachers off
sometimes. I was just like, I don't know. That just doesn't, I don't know if I believe that.
There's like, shut up, don't ask questions. Just listen.
Right. Yeah, exactly. This kid needs to go to a special school.
So he's asking these inconvenient questions.
Well, because you find out the teacher really doesn't know the answer to the question. They really can only regurgitate what the text says.
Yeah. Most teachers
they're scratching their heads.
You realize, shut up. Most teachers don't really know that much. They just want to do the job.
It's like, how did they take a picture of the first guy getting off the lunar lander on the moon? Who took the picture?
Why is the flag blowing in the wind when there's no wind on the moon? Like that type of stuff.
Who took the picture of them leaving? And when you stop asking those questions. That's inconvenient to the story.
And you look at it, it's like a little box that looks like it's barely thrown together and just launched through space. Like, okay, maybe, but it seems.
But right, so then when you start to question the moon landing and things like that, you're kind of questioning it. This was a very patriotic moment. We beat the Ruskies. We stuck a flag on the earth. It's like a flag on the moon. So that starts to chip away with people's idea of what the greatness of America or something like that. And it's like, well, sometimes you have to remove these idols from your life. Yeah. It's like, what if it was a lie?
I prefer finding out what's true. And I'm undecided on the moon landing. At first, oh, that's nonsense. But then people start asking some of these questions, like you just ask, oh, that's interesting.
Well, just think about it like this.
And they lost the technology, they say. They lost it.
Well, they say they destroyed it. No, but just think about this. Again, we talk about these buildings that make no sense and how advanced these people were. It sounds almost just like the same dumb story about the moon landing, because for some reason in the 60s, they started the Apollo missions in 1961, right? And what we're told is they put a man on the moon by 1969. So in 8 years.
Wait, 8 years? That's
8 years. 8 years.
From not launching in space at all to on the moon.
Right. Well, they were, I don't know exactly what the rocket program was before that, but that was their goal, to get to the moon. So they did it in 8 years. So today we have what they call as the Artemis program, which is interesting to go back to the mythologies. So we have Apollo, the sun god, right? And it's Apollo 11, the magic number, got to the moon. And then you have his sister is Artemis, the goddess of the moon. So that's the moon mission. And that started in 2017. Well, they were supposed to go before it now, but they keep pushing it back. And so now they're not going to get to the moon, supposedly, until 2027. So you're telling me, you want me to believe
it takes longer now than back then.
It's going to take longer for people today than it took them in the 60s.
If that's true, we're incompetent. But that doesn't make sense. They also say they recorded over the original tapes. They lost over the original tapes.
They lost the telemetry data. Yeah, they don't have any of the original stuff. Like the computers, they say supposedly we couldn't even play it on the technology.
Oh, sorry guys, we lost this. Didn't record this.
What we're told is the computing power in our phones now are just so much more advanced than what they had then. So again, that's you don't destroy technology unless it's obsolete because you made something better, more efficient.
Why would they destroy the technology? That never made sense to me.
No, and if you actually look at the lunar lander looks like it's made of tinfoil. It's got gaps all in the panel. Like we're told that space
is me and you just like put that together real quick in a couple
hours. It looks like a science project and a bad one.
And not even me and you, like they're kids.
You're thinking like
we helped our kids throw together a little thing.
What you think of like a spaceship would be like, it would be something very sleek, kind of like like a Star Wars type thing. Like you would have to have just think about like
these rockets that they're launching and stuff today, like Elon and stuff.
Well, just think about like with was it what's his name? The aviator, what's his name?
Lindbar.
Now I'm forgetting his name.
Like an older guy or a newer guy or.
Gosh, I forget his name. But anyways, one of the guys who was working on the early airplanes, and when they were trying to get them to go faster, they were making sure like all the rivets were on the insides and the way that they were built because they had to withstand all this friction and all that stuff. And then you look at what the lunar lander looks like. It's got gaps all over it. It does literally look like it's made of tinfoil. And then you also they had the lunar rover, and it's like, where did that even come from? It's like, it looks like it was made from like Jeep parts. Where did they put that at?
Yeah, it wasn't that big, and
it's driving around. It's just like
it doesn't really make sense. The more you look at it, the less sense it makes.
It just seems silly. And I mean, I think the thing that really kind of I just laughed out loud when I just thought about it was that I made a video about that a long time ago about how like it's 50 something years. Here's what the phones look like back when they went to the moon.
Yeah,
and it's one of these rotary. It's one of these rotary phones.
Yeah. No cell phones.
And I said, and here's Richard Nixon using one of those phones to talk to the moon in 1969.
Yeah, that's how are they supposedly doing? They suppose
a landline
connection.
He used a landline. Of course, they're saying
the moon.
He patched into Houston, and eventually he talked to the moon. They through radio waves, whatever. The point is, I've tried to live stream in certain locations. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. So I mean, to the idea that what they're showing you is basically they're live streaming from the moon in 1969. Like he's talking to astronauts without some kind of delay. Even you think about like the Iraq War. Like I remember back in like the early 90s when you had like Desert Storm.
There's a delay, yeah.
You have like the CNN correspondent, and he's doing like this, and it's like there's like 3 to 5 seconds. And then they start talking. Richard Nixon is having a conversation with
no
them.
delay. They still have it. They still have it today with those things. Sometimes it's like
I guess that's the thing. It's like, why did we ever believe it though? It's because
the Cold War, everyone believed it. There was
because you were told it was true.
Alternative media before there wasn't. You're just told it's true.
You were told it's true, and I think that
people were it was a very patriotic act. That's why they don't want to go against it because it was.
My dad hated it when I talked about that. Talked about the moon landing.
So it's like America's greatness, but it doesn't mean we're not. But I think that's why some people get angry about it. But if you actually start trying to break down the information, it looks a little bit iffy.
Well, it always comes down to like, so why do you believe something? I mean, if it's true, it will hold up to scrutiny. Yeah.
I think everything you should be able to dissect everything.
I mean. I think that most of the conspiracies I've ever looked into, it's not that I wanted them to be true. I just was saying, okay, I really actually don't want some of these to be true. I said,
like Pizzagate.
Okay, let's just, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of.
I think parts of that are fake, parts of that are true. That's what happens with some of them. Parts of it get put in fake when there's some really.
Well, I think that's probably meant to be.
I think that was put in there intentionally.
They're meant to straw man your position by saying
they throw something crazy in there. So it's like, the whole thing's crazy. You're a psycho.
Yeah, that's the psyop. But it's like. A lot of these conspiracies, even the ones I first will try to like debunk them myself because, I would be doing like live streams and stuff and I had people peppering me with these certain conspiracies and I go, I want to shut them up. So then I'm going to try to debunk it. And then I start to ask the question. I try to ask the questions of like, okay, so if this is, people are asking about this, what's the answer to this? And then you find out there's no answers to those questions. And then you're like, okay, well, I want there to be a good explanation for this, but there's not one. So I think that's where, especially like getting back to like 9/11, when you start to ask questions like Building 7 and things that.
So many holes all over.
You're just like, well, why isn't there an answer? Because if it's true, right? The truth doesn't mind being questioned.
No,
if you're telling somebody the truth and they're not actually just like trying to antagonize you, you're like, okay, you want an answer? Yeah. I'll tell you the answer. I don't mind explaining it to you. But a lie gets really defensive. And they get mad at you. And they start to like, just a lot of these I would ask questions. And I was really like,
theorists.
They start calling you names and it was like, hey, whoa, I'm actually on your side. I want to know the right answer so I can shut them up. But then when you started to see people get defensive, you're like, this is not about like what's true. This is like almost like dogma.
It's an
This
agenda.
is like,
It's a dogma, things you can't question.
Right.
That happened with like trying to prove a friend wrong before I start digging a hole and you start seeing, oh shit, he's right.
right. Well, I mean, I think that's it. A lot of this has taught me a lot of kind of humility. And it's taught me like that I don't know everything. There's a lot of things
that always be able to change your mind.
There's
too.
a lot.
When I see
Right.
new information, I'll change my mind.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think maybe God's taught me a little patience and humility where I'm like, do you want to know what's true or do you want to be right?
Yeah, I want to know what's true.
Right.
I like being right. I prefer being right.
Oh,
I hate being wrong. I'm not going to lie. But
absolutely
there's times where I'll step back and be like, fuck, I was wrong.
But if you do sit down and listen to people and you actually say, what you said actually makes more sense than what I believe. If you can do that, well, then obviously you can grow a lot through that process. But if you're so set and you're so in love with your own theories, well, you ain't learning anything.
And you talk to some people and you realize, oh, it's a waste talking to them. It doesn't matter what you present them. They're not changing their mind. They're not trying, they don't care about truth. They care about sticking to their agenda.
Well, I mean, I think that a lot of the things we said, and I'm sure a lot of things we've gone over in this podcast, like nobody should just believe me.
No,
everybody should go do your own research. So,
and I'll double check things. I'll try to prove myself wrong on something I believe sometimes.
Yeah, so
make sure my views are correct.
So if I said anything that anybody found interesting, and this is what I would hope to try to do these days too, is like, if I hear something interesting on like a podcast, I might go read a book about that.
Yeah, and look it up.
I might want to find out if this person knows what they're talking about. But I think that when you start to do that, that's how you kind of can grow and you can kind of change. And I think that the more you do learn, the more you realize, there's a lot of things that I know about.
I think so many people are not good at finding information. They'll just ask, well, where did you get that? It's like, before you ask me, why don't you go do a little look around yourself a little bit first?
Yeah. Knowledge that's easily gained is kind of in one ear and out the other. Yeah. It's not really appreciated. But when you actually kind of looked into and you ask some of these questions yourself, the truth is I have been wrong. And I like to be able to say that I've been wrong because I
hate saying I've been wrong, but I have been.
I like to be able to say that I can say that. I don't like to say that I'm wrong.
I hate saying it, but sometimes I have to.
But it's just, I don't know. I guess it's something it's freeing when you just cannot acknowledge where this is what I believe. It is important. This is what I believe today.
You're wrong that you admit it too.
This is what I believe today. If I'm presented with better information,
you should change your mind. Some people aren't capable of changing their mind, even with presented with better information.
Yeah, it's just like the whole thing. Like you go back to the pyramids, go back to the Tatarian buildings and things like that. It's like, if there was a good answer, then I would be satisfied to accept that answer. But I think that's the thing. So when you start asking questions about this stuff, like how are these buildings, these old buildings that are more impressive than anything we built today, why are the windows at ground level or below the ground level? Why do all these old buildings go multiple stories under the ground? Why is there tunnel systems under every major city? But they're all really
the old ones, like the ones in Pruins we're talking about. They have these giant tunnel systems.
They're all the oldest ones. So you're thinking like, wouldn't it be harder for them to have done that back then when they don't have advanced excavating equipment? And we started asking questions like that. It's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I really want to know, like, why don't we build basements in the houses we have today, but they built them like 100 years ago? Like, why is that? Like, why do, when the street slopes up, why do the windows start to disappear? Nobody builds buildings like that. That's not how it's done. And so you say, well, how did all the sediment get up next to these buildings? And then they say, don't worry about it. And you're like, that's not good enough. Like, I want an answer. Like, so when people start talking about like the mud flood and there's evidence of things buried all around the whole world, from like Easter Island and the Moai statues, all the way to
like I just saw how buried those were recently.
Yeah, all the way to places all around. Every old city in America has stuff like that. And so when I started to ask those questions, even like the Roman Empire, they accidentally discover Roman artifacts and mosaics and bathhouses under the ground, under people's fields. There's farms.
Shit was clearly buried.
So you're like, so how did it get buried? And I thought, well, why didn't they tell us about that in history school? Why is there no history about it at all? And that's when I say, I guess history is pretty unreliable. But it's not because that was my first conclusion. It's because I really did ask the questions, like where is the historical narrative to explain these things? And
It's just not there. It's missing.
You get called like some kind of a kook for asking the questions.
They recently uncovered the city like 12,000 years old in Turkey with all these giant monoliths. Was supposedly before cities were there. Hunter-gatherers built it. Doesn't really add up.
Well, even that story, the whole story, you're talking about,
What do you call it?
Göbekli Tepe. And what we're told is and I still think this narrative is stupid, that they supposedly buried it themselves. But the thing about it is, how do you go about burying a temple complex completely level with the rest of the ground?
To me, but yeah.
Wouldn't it be a big pyramid or big mound if it was buried on top? Like,
that's what I would think.
I think that it was buried by an act of God, some kind of a cataclysm. That's what makes possible. Yeah. That's what makes more sense to me. Just like all the Roman things.
Supposedly before they had these civilizations and they have these giant like monoliths put there, and that was not put by. I think the story is, it must have been hunter-gatherers, but I doubt that.
No, it doesn't make a bit of sense. I mean, the real question is, why didn't we know about it till now? I mean, that's the thing. And like the whole thing, like the whole kind of
There's
Indiana
so much stuff that's lost.
Indiana Jones mythos, like that he's going and finding lost relics and artifacts that have spiritual significance. But isn't it kind of just weird that does anyone ever stop to think, how come these things ever got lost? It's like, then they say, like, they act like there was no lost civilizations, but like, well, then how did these things get lost? How did they ever get lost? How did things ever get buried and people didn't know about it?
There's all kinds of things. They found like an old like computer thing in the sea, and like there's old maps that show things they shouldn't be. It's just, I don't have all the answers, but there's clearly lots of questions. Well, anything else we should hit before we wrap? I know Brian's asked about the Nephilim, but I think maybe we do that tomorrow because that's
we could talk about. I'm good unless you got.
We can go a few more. Yeah. We'll hit, like I said, I can't go too late tonight. It's got early morning, but let's do. Brian said to ask about the Nephilim. We also talk about that tomorrow.
Oh yeah,
that's probably like a long. Let's give a really short breakdown now
of the Nephilim.
I always hear the term Nephilim, but I don't know exactly what that even.
Well, I thought we kind of hit that earlier. Didn't we hit this?
Was that the
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, talking about like the Enoch and the
okay,
giants.
So that is the Nephilim, the Enoch that was angels.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, talking about the giants building the megaliths.
Oh, so that is the Nephilim. So I hear that term and I didn't realize that was them.
Yeah, it's Nephilim is in one translation of the Bible. Like, so if you read kind of like I don't know, like the ESV.
I've never read the Bible. I need to do that.
It says, yeah, you should. It says the ESV calls them Nephilim. But like in the King James version, like Nephilim and giants are interchangeable.
This is the book of Enoch?
Yeah, I want to say Nephilim means like to fall. It's like it's kind of like
this is right out of the Bible, huh?
It's kind of like fallen ones. Right, that's the crazy thing about the Nephilim is that like a guy like me, I grew up in a household that we went to church every Sunday.
But you never hear
I mean like seriously, it was like I was like in my 40s. I mean, I had read the Bible before. But I really was like, it was one of those things where like, I cannot believe that I read past this. I don't know how many times, and I didn't notice because I guess the thing
like you don't know kind of a big deal.
Well, you don't know the language in the Bible. I guess at least a lot of people know what's in the Bible, but they don't understand it, and they don't understand they don't understand they don't understand the context of like what it's actually talking about. And
because
actually
I change the meanings, the way they write is so different.
I read a really interesting book from Michael Heiser, and it was called The Unseen Realm. And he had like a really profound quote, a couple actually. He said that the Bible was written for us, but not to us. So, it's just the context. Like, who's the audience for this? Like, what do they know? And so without separating the text from that, you lose a lot. And also he said, if it's weird, it's important. Like, so if you just read over something in the Bible and you say, well, that's weird, and then just never think about it again.
That is so weird that's included in the Bible, but it's never talked about.
Well, it's like, if it's weird, it's only weird to you, but it wasn't weird to them. So maybe you should figure out like what it was supposed to mean. And so when it says, the sons of God saw the daughters of men, and they thought they were beautiful, and then they took wives of them. Okay, what are the sons of God? Well, if you actually read the context in the Bible, it's like every time the sons of God are mentioned, there's talking about spiritual beings. I mean, just think about it like in the way that Adam was also a son of God, but Adam was a direct creation of God. He wasn't born of a woman. He wasn't born of a man. So he's a son of God because he's a direct creation of God. So basically, for all intents and purposes, the way we can understand it, they're talking about angels. And so when you read that, you're like, okay, that's weird. When you finally get that connection.
I hear this from Nephilim mentioned, but I didn't realize it was
so angels had sex with women. Humans. Is that possible? Like, that's the first thought. Is like, is that possible? And not only that,
Apparently.
Well, then some people here, and I think this is the problem, is like certain people try to take the spirituality out of the Bible instead of trying to understand it or explain it. So they'll say sons of God are actually not angels; they're actually godly men. But it says they have this different race of beings that come from, like their offspring are like Nephilim and Giants. It's like, how does godly men have sex with regular women and not make regular people? They made a race of giants. And so when you start to see that in the Bible, it's like, yeah, that was one of those things I was like, I cannot believe that I never noticed this. And I'm like a guy who's like, loved comic books, loved all the superhero stuff. And I'm like, when it says, these giants were the men of renown, the heroes of old. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like they're superheroes.
Yes.
And I think that that's exactly what...
That's very bizarre.
That's exactly what they're talking about.
Stuff. I didn't realize that was right from the Bible. I thought that was like a different, like mythology.
Well, you're like, there's giants when they come into the promised land in the Bible. And like, where did they even come from?
What do you think about all the old newspaper clippings that show giant bones were found all
oh, yeah, that's absolutely legit. I want to say
100% the articles are there. People can try to argue that, oh, sensationalism, but there's like hundreds of them.
There's a quote, not because I would get it wrong, but I know that Abraham Lincoln talked about when they were dedicating, I think, Niagara Falls or something, and he was saying that this site was gazed on by giants of the ancient times in America or something like that. Saying like we're seeing the same thing these giants once saw. This is like Abraham Lincoln.
Dang.
So when you look into old newspaper clippings, there's giant,
tons of them, hundreds, I think.
There's giant bones found everywhere. And of course, the story is almost always the same: is that the Smithsonian came in, took the bones, and now they said, well, we don't even know what happened to them. But it's just the Native Americans talked about giants, and actually I was shocked when I first learned this is that. Though I think a lot of the stories about, like, especially like Columbus and 1492, I think a lot of that's made up too. But that all the very famous explorers like Columbus, Amerigo Vespucci, Magellan, they wrote about when they came to the New World, there was giants here.
I've seen that through a lot of the stories.
But the funny part about it is, like, so like in Magellan's diaries, where he wrote about him circumnavigating the Earth, he wrote that he also encountered giants in there. So what we credit him with, we took that story and wrote that in our history books.
We write that exact, all the longitudes. He had all that.
But we don't mention that in the same writing, he mentioned that he found giants in those lands. That is...
We take this part and we throw that part away.
Talk about a lie by omission.
And they were very exact in the details there, because those were like official... All their documents had to be exact because they were also tracking everywhere they went. I doubt they'd just make up bizarre stuff.
You know what would make more sense to make up? That you sailed all the way around the world.
Yeah.
You would probably lie about that more often than you would lie about the fact that you saw giants there, because the funny part about it is like, if you did sail all the way around the world, you wouldn't write a lie into that thing about seeing giants. They would say, they wouldn't have said, this guy's crazy. You can disregard all this stuff. So the fact that it is in the same document, then it makes it seem like he's not lying. He's telling you what he saw. And I want to say that even, I remember on Graham Hancock was talking about on that his show Ancient Apocalypse. He was assessing a story. I want to say it's in Cholula, I think is what it's called. And there's this pyramid in Mexico that's actually like absolutely massive, like way bigger than the Great Pyramid. It's not as tall, but it's like the base.
Wider.
Yeah, and it's, of course, it's all under the earth. There's like multiple pyramids under the earth. And he was discussing that the Aztecs were telling the conquistadors about this place, and they were telling them that giants had built it. And they also said that the giants became very corrupt, and then the gods
wiped them out,
rained on them and caused a great flood and destroyed them. And you're like, that's really weird, because I mean, what we would have believed is they had no knowledge of the book of Genesis.
But it's the exact same story.
It's the exact same story.
Very, very close. Not exact, but close.
I want to say the conquistadors, the Spanish, wrote about trying to take some of these Aztec cities, and there was a giant there that was hurling boulders at them. And it was very hard to take. But I mean, like, that, like, why make that up? Like, why make that up? And the real question would be like, well, why don't they just acknowledge that it's true? I mean, like, even when you read in the Bible, there was a 9-foot tall giant.
It's a weird thing to hide, yeah.
So we already, if you say you're Christian, you already believe that part of the story. So why is it hard to believe there was 9-foot giants? other places.
Especially it's written all over history. It's all in the newspapers. People claim it everywhere. There's too many people that have said the same thing. There's another, I read a book, can't remember who, he was an explorer. And again, he had everything exactly mapped out, all the exact details. So there's no lies in that part that you could track all of his locations. And he went down the Amazon and he was talking about seeing like giant, like, 8 foot and stuff, even some women fighting. It's like, but he didn't lie. Everything else was exactly mapped out, these rivers and shit. So why would he add stuff like that in?
There's a famous story, I think, actually kind of near here, is the Chaco Canyon, where these Indians burned these cannibalistic giants in a cave up there.
I haven't heard that. Is that around here?
Yeah, I want to say that's kind of maybe northern.
Cannibalistic giants.
North of here.
That sounds pretty scary.
Yeah, no, yeah. So they found bones in these places, but I mean, like, that's the Native Americans have all those kinds of mythologies where these giants are like big enough to run and snatch up buffaloes with one hand and stuff like that. I mean, how much is that true? I don't know, but I just think it's. I mean,
there's a lot of things. Probably pieces are true, pieces aren't.
Well, I think
it's worth listening to.
Well, it's and the question would be like, so yeah, why do they lie about it? And I think that we live in a world where the science has created this evolutionary paradigm. Giants don't fit into that paradigm.
Exactly, because science has almost turned into religion.
Well, it's like
trust the science.
It's like what they would do is they would find things that don't fit into their paradigm and they would throw them out. And that's exactly what you get from the Smithsonian, is the fact that things are hidden. I mean, again, go back to like Indiana Jones, the Raiders of the Lost Ark. They take the Ark at the end, everyone know that famous scene, and they take it and they stick it in the warehouse and they hide it away. And, it's just a fictional movie, whatever, it's fun. But then you really think about it, like the more I've done research, I'm like, that is exactly what they would do, because if anybody knew that the Ark was real, well, that would change a lot of people's minds about certain things, about spirituality and the Bible and things like that. So just imagine, like, if they were doing some research in Egypt now and they made a discovery. And what if they found some kind of flying craft or something like that?
They wouldn't want to.
Some kind of ancient, like Stargate, like they show in that movie.
They don't want to shake up their views. They want to keep believing what they believe.
Well, the question I'd ask to everybody is, do you think that they would tell you if they found something like that?
I would say probably not.
I would say
some people, depends on who found it. I mean, some would for sure, but I think a lot of I think the main guys have had their whole careers on that. They wouldn't. They would try to hide it because it would just destroy their.
Well, they've created like a whole education system. They call it Egyptology. Like if they found something that did not fit, it shakes up
their whole worldview.
I've wrote books about this. I'm an expert in this. It would be that you don't know what you're talking about. Like, you've just been making stuff up, and I think that's what most of these people are doing. Is that they're doing their best to piece together a narrative. And so if something doesn't fit in it, well, then therefore it's discarded. It's like, it's not a giant's bone, it's a brontosaurus's femur.
That's what they tried doing. Well, I really realized most experts have no idea what they're talking about, like during COVID, because I had way too much free time, just retired fighting. So I was carefully looking through all these studies and hit my doctor friends up and stuff. And you realize, like, oh, they're just like shutting it down. Well, Fauci's this. I'm like, oh, no, I'm not asking what Fauci. I'm sending you this report. I broke it down. Here's what I found. What do you think? And their brains couldn't, like, I had one doctor called and apologized. The rest of them stopped being friends. You realize these guys can't get questioned.
No, absolutely.
They can't actually look at the data. They're just repeating what they're supposed to repeat.
Well, these doctors are indoctrinated. So they are doctors of medicine. So of course they're going to promote medicine. All medicine is good. But it's like, what do you think?
They can't even like decipher the studies if it goes against their view.
Well, you find out like the science is not science, it's dogma. Because I think that a lot of us, probably before like years like 2020, we did just trust the science. We trusted the expert.
Science.
But then we're like, when like these issues affect our lives big time, we're researching it ourselves, and we're just like, okay, this doesn't make sense. Can you help us to understand what you're doing?
And then they ban you.
And then you're like,
your account.
Well, that's what kind of radicalizes people like me. Is that literally is like,
you ask a question. Oh,
that was my main issue. I mean, that was one of the main things that woke me up was reading the news on Twitter back then, and I was reading everything about it, and I was like, the way the news is presenting the story does not make sense, and that really got me disillusioned by the end. Like probably the 2020 election, and I was just like, I don't think that anyone actually cares what's true, because I said this doesn't make any sense. I feel like that I am like one of the few sane people left on earth.
You're supposed to just follow along and not ask questions. And
I'm like, this is going to shake up the world like nobody's ever seen before. and what they're calling science now is absolutely not science. And I remember just thinking like that. And of course, obviously, there was a lot of people. I wasn't the only one, but I mean,
but we were the minority, not the majority. I was in San Francisco. It was pretty. It was just insane the stuff people would believe. Like one of the crazy examples after they had all the George Floyd riots, they literally pushed. The science said that these riots don't spread COVID, but that the anti-lock ones do. They literally were saying that, and people were repeating it. Like, I'm like, you guys are retarded.
Well,
can't even be around
Fauci was not willing to say to not gather and do those things, but he would.
They even said it doesn't spread. They even said it doesn't spread COVID. The science was different on that.
He would say that you could.
Racism is also a sickness, a disease.
Oh, right, that disease is worse. But you can't gather in a church, but you can gather to riot.
Yeah,
that's.
They literally gaslight us and saying this won't spread it, but this will.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the thing. I do believe that in a sovereign God, and I do believe that these things can work together for our good, because I'm like, that did radicalize lots of us.
Yeah, it got me in. It forced me into politics.
That forced
you can't work. You can't leave your house.
Well, that forced me at the very beginning. On
your face.
And not to say, I was probably more like the other people saying, why do I need to know any of this stuff? Because my brother was trying to share a lot of the stuff with me. And but my life was going pretty good. I really didn't want to know. And so I've always been skeptical, but I really didn't. You didn't want to. I didn't really want to know.
I want to dig into 9/11 and see.
No, I didn't. I didn't want to believe that. So then, when I was faced with that pandemic, and then I was faced with the 2020 election, I was like, "This is crazy." So, like, if they've lied about these two big events in 1 year, what else have they lied about?
Yeah. Nothing. Everything else.
And
true
then you start pulling at the thread of the sweater, and you're like, "Yeah, the science is BS. The experts are BS. The history's BS. It's all BS." And almost at the end of that, like you can't stop. But I mean, like that's why like people like you and I are having conversations like this, because.
Well, let's try to figure out because, like I said, some stuff's true, some not. So obviously, some science is legit, but we're supposed to just trust all of it. Like it was a fish, then you turned into a human. It's like, come on. I think parts of evolution can be true. I think we can evolve to our environments a little bit, but I don't think I'm ever going to turn into a bird. I don't care if it's 1 billion years from now.
Well, like natural selection, natural selection makes some sense.
Yeah. So parts of evolution are true. So I don't think it's fully fake, but I think parts of it are fake.
It's like microevolution versus macro.
Exactly. And how did the first cell jump to consciousness? Stuff like that. Like you can't explain that.
But I think that's the thing, and I think as we talked about that earlier, is that when you have somebody who's willing to admit they don't know everything.
Yeah.
And they could say, yeah, there's still a lot of mysteries, but like that's not what you get from the experts.
You get like, we know it. We're the experts. Shut up. Trust us.
I mean, yeah, like
COVID, you're not a doctor. Shut up. Like,
a little humility goes a long way. If they said, hey, this is our best recommendation for this, can't guarantee anything, but instead they rushed out, and you're like, wait a minute, this is the antithesis of science. And so when you start to see like that, this is not just isolated to this one instance. Like this is how it all works in academia. Yeah. And it's like this appeal to authority. And you're like, but if you guys were always right, we would not be in this mess right now. But you guys have let us down a lot.
And so they're incapable of admitting when they're wrong. They have this dogma, so they can't be like, oh, we were wrong about this. They have to be right because they're the experts.
Well, right. I mean,
they never apologized.
Well, I guess the truth is,
they never even said they're wrong about COVID. They never been like, oh, we shouldn't have given you the vaccine. They never like, oh, the masks were stupid.
Well, they kind of have, but they kind of haven't.
I mean, really have. I don't think they fully.
What did they say?
They stopped recommending them. They haven't been like.
Didn't Fauci say
that? Fucked up.
Yeah, Fauci said that eventually. Yeah, the 6 feet was BS. We just made that up, and you're like, I knew it.
He's like, yeah, no shit, it was BS.
I absolutely knew it, but yeah, I don't know. I guess that's the thing, like that we put our faith in these people who we should have never put our faith in, and I think that's why, like, eventually, I'm happy that I did have to go through some of that crap. And of course, we're still living with the effects. And I guess like the effects are.
COVID did so much damage, like wiped out small businesses.
Oh, the inflation. Like I think that, not only that really they printed the trillions of dollars, but it has woke me up. And I guess like the things that noticing like that, I guess that was the thing that kind of really transformed me. I was like, I thought that the foundation of like our Western society was so solid. And the structures and governments and all our institutions were so stable. And then I just realized at that moment, I was like, it's not.
We also realized how humans will just follow. This is something I was reading out of a history book where everyone was just following along like sheep. I was just in shock.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's the NPC phenomenon is absolutely real. Like when even I'm sure as you see, like when you start to learn a few conspiracies, and then you have everybody you think like that, you're like, oh yeah, they're awake, and then they fall for like the next one. You're like,
that's people that fall for the next one.
They're putting like they go from they think the COVID stuff is fake, but then they start putting the Ukraine flag in their bio on like Facebook, and then eventually they realize this is probably messed up too, and then they put like the Israeli flag in their bio after October 7th. You're like, come on, like stop.
Yeah,
like,
that was a propaganda one that people got so mad at me because I'm obviously not a big fan of Israel, and I lean right, and they were mad when I'm like, no, I don't support Israel.
No, but it's like
start October 7th.
It's like people just they find kind of maybe like a comfortable level of understanding, and then they want to stop. But they're like, if they lied about these other things, like these are the same people who lied to you in 2020. They're lying to you still.
On the opposite end, though, you don't want to be the guy that believes every conspiracy, because you get the person too that believes every conspiracy without trying to dissect them, pick them apart.
Yeah,
we should probably wrap up in the next anything. Where can people find you? What anything to plug or?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys enjoyed any of this conversation, you guys can check out my YouTube channel, JT Follows JC. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You can check me out on Apple or Spotify. I have a podcast called JT's Mixtape. But yeah, we talk about all these things and much more.
So you got to be everywhere, right? That's what's so much work when there's so many different platforms you got to put in. I'm like, God damn, you got the TikTok, the Facebook.
Does not stop. But yeah, I'm grateful. It's I guess I just started doing this.
Are you doing this full time now?
I just started doing it full time starting the beginning of September. So yeah, I'm excited.
Feels good absolutely. Bullshit. Being able to talk about interesting stuff and
absolutely being able to come out to go out to Cali yesterday and here in Vegas with you
tomorrow. So thanks so much for coming on.
Absolutely, man.
Go.